Encounter with Ancient Egypt. My Horus. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 101 Pyramid. The ship sailed to the waters of Abydos. On the walls of the buildings along the river, like other cities, there were paintings of the city's main god, Osiris, the lord of the underworld, dressed in green. Osiris is the most recognizable of all the gods in Kemet. He always wears an upper Egyptian white crown with two ostrich feathers on the left and right sides. His skin is lush green, wrapped in a shroud, and his fists are placed on his chest like the pharaoh, with a hook in his left hand and a flail in his right hand. But didn't the legends say that he had an affair with Set's wife? Shouldn't Set be green? Why is he green? Or is he green all over? T was a little confused after hearing this and asked her what was wrong with the green. She hesitated and didn't elaborate. Well, probably one of the couple had an affair, so the other one is green. Where did you hear that from? Why have I never heard of it? T raised his eyebrows and asked her, with a puzzled look in his eyes. Why had he never heard of such a saying? Maybe I remembered it wrong. Jehsekhara rolled her eyes and lied fluently. The green of Osiris is not the green you mistakenly thought it was, right? It represents his eternal life and vitality, and also shows his other identity, the god of agriculture and abundance. No, are you a Kemet? How come you don't know anything? You have to ask everything. Tai couldn't help but complain about her. Her knowledge level was just average. She was still a student of the high priest Busiri. Did Busiri never accept students? Was he too out of touch with the news? Busiri actually accepted such a person who didn't even know common sense as a student. It was unbelievable. I patted her chest and assured him, I am definitely a Kemet. Purebred. In brackets, the shell is, but the core is not. She looked serious on the surface, but smacked her lips behind her back. This was different from the customs of China. It was normal to have random thoughts. I don't know anything because I don't go out much. She laughed, her eyes rolling around. How can I compare to you, Lord Tai? I still don't understand a lot along the way, and I have to rely on you to solve my doubts. Tai was obviously very pleased with this compliment, but he still sighed in a pretentious manner. How can this be possible? You are a student of Busiri, who is famous for his extensive knowledge, and I am just a court shaku. What can I teach you? He changed the subject, but since you said so, of course I have to give you face and solve your doubts to the best of my ability. If you don't understand anything, just ask me, and I will tell you everything I know. Tai made a high-handed promise. Tai laughed secretly. Wait, you will be troubled. I really don't know anything. A magnificent building appeared in sight. No, too. Tai was dumbfounded, clenched her hands and rubbed her eyes vigorously. Oh my god, isn't this Abydos? Pyramids. She cried out in disbelief. How could the pyramids in the north appear here? I haven't heard of pyramids in the south. Pyramids? What are you talking about? T picked her ears to make sure she heard it right. She said this strange name. Why did she always say such strange words? It's right there. Can't you see the pyramids? Tia stretched out her arm and pointed there. At the junction of heaven and earth, two white pyramids stood proudly side by side. The afterglow of the sun fell on the golden spires, reflecting a dazzling light, making it difficult for people not to pay attention. Oh, you mean that place? He turned around and looked at her. A trace of deep thought flashed in his eyes. It's not called a pyramid, then what is it called? Tia choked, blinked guiltily, and took over the conversation naturally. She was really lucky that she didn't hear him ask why. If someone else asked, they would definitely ask. What should she say if they asked? Because the shape is very similar to the Chinese character, so it is a tower in the shape of the character? Otherwise, say it is a tower made of gold? Then don't you have to ask her what Chinese characters are and what towers are? After the explanation, okay, you are an outsider, or a demon who has taken over a human body, drag him out and kill him to sacrifice to this guy. She turned her back and smoothed her chest with her hand. Pay attention next time, pay attention next time. She must have been too relaxed recently and dared to say anything. If she doesn't pay attention now, she will pay attention in her next life. That is the funeral temple of King Amos and King Amos Nefertari. The one next to it is for King Tatishari. When he said this, his expression was solemn, as if he was talking about something sacred. For the people of Kemet, King Amos was the most worthy of respect. He ended the chaos of Kemet for nearly 200 years and completed the great unification of the country. He was a living god, and his funeral temple was more sacred than some unknown local gods. Funeral temple? Won't your majesty be buried in it in the future? Tia touched her head, puzzled from the bottom of her heart. No, isn't it said that the pyramid is the king's mausoleum? Isn't it? What are you thinking? His majesty will definitely not be buried in it. This is just a place for future generations to admire and worship him. How could such a wise majesty be the same as the kings of the previous kingdom? Stupid! Tia screamed, and then realized that he had said something he shouldn't have said, and his voice became smaller and smaller. He must have been led astray by this silly woman these days. He even dared to say such things, openly insulting the kings of the previous dynasty. Why not? Tia still couldn't figure it out. If they built such a big pyramid, but didn't bury themselves in it, then why build it? Isn't it a waste of money and labor? And what about saying that the kings of the previous kingdom are stupid? Tia looked around carefully, and after making sure that there was no one around, he lowered his voice and explained to her in a low voice, most of the mausoleums built by the former kings of the former kingdom have been emptied. Those are too conspicuous. I heard from others that His Majesty intends to build a Loki mausoleum in Abydos that no one can find, separated from the memorial temple. The tombs of ancient times had long been emptied out. T did not say it, nor did he dare to say it. Even he himself had passed through the courtyard of the former king in Saqqara. There was nothing left of the gold, silver and jewelry hidden there. The greedy treasure hunters plundered the jewelry on the former kings, and even their remains were torn into pieces. How tragic it was. Tia curled her lips in her heart. Separated? How far can it be separated? Isn't it still in Abydos? There must be a tomb in this world that no one can find, but it is definitely not Amos's. She didn't know anything else. She only knew that she had seen the mummy of Amos on display in the museum, together with Ramses II and Thutmose III. The exhibition hall was called the Golden Age of Egyptian military. Not only was the tomb discovered, the treasures were taken away, and he himself was dragged out for exhibition. In this case, why do a double job? Speaking of which, our destination this time is not far from there. If you want to go, you can go and have a look. Tu also saw that Tia had no interest in what he said, smiled slightly, and ended the topic. The big ship slowly docked at the dock, and the servants lowered the planks. Tu tidied his clothes and sat on his high-standard chair carried by 8 people. In the past, he would not go to pick someone up in person, but this time was different. He was a person who could not stay still. This time he had been on the ship for many days. He needed to come out to bask in the sun and breathe the lively air in the city. Tia followed behind on the donkey that Ibt had arranged for her. She thought about the suggestion he had just made. It would be good to go and have a look. Not everyone has the opportunity to see the newly built pyramids. But not now. Time is so tight now. Let's wait and see it later. I haven't talked for a long time, but I can't think of anything to say, so I'll just do the splits here. Robbery. Give me your money. Roar, 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 roar. Chapter 102, Another Hotep. Legend has it that when Osiris was the lord of the world, he was brutally murdered by his evil brother Set and put into a gorgeous wooden box. His wife Isis went through great pains to find him, but was discovered by Set again. This time Set cut his brother into 13 pieces and threw them to different places on the land of Kemet. Isis once again embarked on a difficult journey to find her husband, and finally found her husband's head in Abydos. Some people also say that what was found was Osiris' left leg, and his blood gushed out of his leg, so there was the endless Nile River. But no matter what, Abydos has always been the most important part of the Osiris myth. Every corner of the city is filled with a strong atmosphere of worshipping the god of the underworld. There has always been a saying in Kemet that no matter whether you are poor or rich, you must come to Abydos once in your life to worship the great god Osiris, so that your soul can be recognized by the Lord of the underworld, return to your body safely, meet your Ba, and go to the eternal afterlife to start a new chapter. Therefore, this city has been enduring, and there are always pilgrims from all over the kingdom in the city. It is one of the largest cities in the kingdom. Don't you want to see the king's funeral temple? It's over there. I'll do my business here first. We'll continue our journey when you come back. But you have to be careful. There are many places you can't go. To be safe, you'd better stay 500 cubits away and take a look, Tia kindly reminded. They have now arrived outside the best beautiful house in Abydos. It is not far from the pyramid of Amos. Dia looked at the open door of the beautiful house in front of her, and then looked at the pyramid standing not far away, and shook her head firmly. The distance now seems very close, but who knows how long it will take to walk there. A lot of time has been wasted along the way. I don't know how many hawkers selling jet pillar amulets have been politely rejected. I got off the boat in the morning and the sun was already high when I got here. Tidai took out a small mirror to look at his appearance and signaled the servant to go in and pass on the message. Before the servant went in, a young man came out of the beautiful house. He was tall and strong. Even if he had shaved off his hair, eyebrows and eyelashes, he could still be seen as a very handsome young man. His bald forehead shone in the sun, making his eyes look like stars. Seeing that there were guests in the beautiful house, he grinned politely, revealing a mouthful of bright white teeth. "Excuse me, distinguished guests, what do you want to do here?" the visitor asked. The beautiful house was the last place where the dead stayed after being made into immortal bodies. It was wrong for him to ask this question. It was obvious that he was asking questions knowing the answer, but there was nothing to criticize. Because this beautiful house was no different from others, its owner was the best corpse craftsman in the kingdom, no one else. Only dignitaries passed through his hands. He was usually very idle. Without sufficient status and position, he would not take action. "Are you Lord Teddy? His Majesty the King has ordered you to bring your common tools and go to Memphis with us," T said indifferently, smacking his lips and his heart. "Is this the most famous corpse craftsman in the kingdom? He looks so young, he must be a genius." When Tia heard him mention the name Teddy, she couldn't help but burst out laughing. How could this adult give such a name? Isn't this a dog's name? She thought about it but didn't dare to say it out loud. She just whispered sorry and retreated behind Tyi. She didn't dare to say this kind of explanation. Isn't it insulting? Besides, where can we find such a breed as Teddy dog nowadays? The young man was slightly stunned when he saw her laughing. A trace of surprise flashed across his eyes, but it was hidden in an instant. A smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. "No, I'm not Lord Teddy, I'm his student, Amónhotep. Since you have urgent matters, I will go and inform my teacher." Amónhotep bowed politely and turned back to the beauty house. Tia looked at T in surprise. "What does this Jehsekhara mean? I have met several of them. Is this name so common?" The person she likes is called Amónhotep, and she met another Amónhotep in the House of Life. Now there is another little priest named Amónhotep. Is this suffix so common? Huh? How come you don't know this kind of common sense? Hotep means to satisfy XX, or the servant of XX. This is very common. You can add a prefix according to the god you believe in. This Amónhotep just now, his name is still quite special now. The god of war Mentu, tut, that's a long time ago, few people believe in it now. T shrugged his shoulders and said indifferently that the name Amónhotep is not so common. The real common name now should be Amónhotep. After all, people in the whole kingdom now believe in Amon. Two figures walked out of the beautiful house again. The handsome young man just now walked out behind an old man, holding a toolbox that looked heavy in both hands. Obviously, this old man with the same appearance as Busri is the purpose of their trip, the best Miwu priest in the kingdom, Teddy. As a high priest, Teddy was much thinner than Busri. It might be because he had lived with the dead for a long time. His breath was even more gloomy. His eyelids looked old and drooped loosely, covering half of his eyes. Teddy was obviously ready. He even asked his students to take out the box. In this case, there was no need to say too many polite words. T nodded, and the servant stepped forward to take the box from Amónhotep's hand, and brought out a chair from behind. Amónhotep carefully warned, "It's a bit heavy." The servant grinned and thought, how heavy can it be? As a student of a high priest, can you be as strong as us who work? Seeing that he was ready, Amónhotep handed the box to him and then let go. The force in his hand suddenly increased, and the sudden force made the strong servant stagger. He looked up at the young man in horror. My goodness, how strong is this guy? He seems to be holding it easily. Is it a bit heavy? Huh? Lord Teddy, please. Teddy nodded and sat on the recliner prepared for him. He looked at Amónhotep and opened his mouth. After I leave, if someone comes to me for help, you can do the work for me. Your skills are enough. Teddy looked at him, as if he thought of something else, and frowned slightly. Remember, Don't let your lively fiancée mess up my workshop and use her wonderful ideas to entertain my guests. Before Mentuhotep could reply, a crisp female voice interrupted. Hey, old man. I heard you calling me just now. Do you miss me so much? Huh? Where are you going? A young girl jumped out from behind at some point, and her voice was so impolite that it attracted everyone's attention. The girl was petite, with 2 rows of thick eyelashes covering a pair of round and bright eyes. The 2 small dimples on her cheeks complemented each other, and her whole body exuded a vibrant breath. Hearing the sound of snapping in his ears, Teddy's eyelids jumped and he looked towards the source of the sound. The girl was breaking a round apple in her hand, neatly splitting it into 2 halves and stuffing one half into the young man's mouth. Looking at the red color of the apple, Teddy's old face twitched and raised his hand tremblingly. You. This evil star. Next time he accepts students, he must forbid them to bring their families here. Definitely. This is the apple he just offered to the gods this morning. Exclamation mark. Hey, hey, hey. Old man. Don't be angry. Don't be angry. This apple is delicious. The person you sent to purchase it this time really has a good eye. The girl's eyes rolled around, snatched the other half from the young man's mouth, straightened Teddy's remaining fingers, and put the apple on. Try it. I'm not kidding you, it's delicious. The apple that Mentuhotep had bitten was shining in the sun, and the side facing Teddy was even more, revealing a row of neat teeth marks. The poor old man almost fell backwards. You don't want to eat it? It's a waste if you don't eat it. Don't waste it. Come on, eat it. He stuffed it back into Mentuhotep's mouth. The young man blinked his eyes innocently and took out half of the apple in his mouth. He looked at the speechless faces of the crowd and scratched his head awkwardly. That, the one next to me is my fiancée, she. Tia, what are their names? Amónhotep, 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 Amónhotep. Yeah, tell me, why are there so many people with your name? Meng, because Amon is the main god of the country. Yeah, then tell me again, there are so many people named Amónhotep, why did you lie to me and use other names to deceive me? Angry, Meng, I didn't know you were my wife at that time. Scratching my head, large-scale domestic violence scene, haha. The protagonist of my other novel The Redemption of Anubis is here to visit. Mentuhotep's Shen Yai, do you like them? Hey, I changed the cover again. Chapter 103 Decay. Mentuhotep looked at his petite fiancée beside him with a helpless expression. He coaxed her in a gentle voice, Yai, stop making trouble. The teacher is going to work in Memphis and will be gone for a long time. Don't be angry with the teacher. The girl named Shi nodded symbolically. Okay, I won't be angry with him today, and then turned to look at Teddy, who was already sitting on the chair. You must be safe on this trip to Memphis, Lord Teddy. This sentence sounded like a good word at first, but it sounded strange in the ears. The long tail sound sounded like saying something not so good. But anyway, it was a blessing to himself. Teddy curled his lips and snorted. This little bastard finally said something pleasant to the ear, which was barely worthy of his good student. Mentuhotep was a good seedling. If he was cultivated well for a few more years, he would definitely surpass his own achievements. When he comes back, he must have a good talk with Mentuhotep. It's okay to spoil your wife, but you can't dote on her like this. You have to let her know how powerful her husband is, so that she won't be so jumpy every day. After hearing this meaningful sentence, Tidai and Mentuhotep on the opposite side both twitched their eyelids. She didn't know what happened to Mentuhotep, but she was shocked. For some reason, she had a strange feeling that Shi on the opposite side knew the meaning of the word teddy. Shi knew teddy dogs? Impossible, there is no such breed now. Suspicious eyes patrolled Shi back and forth, but did not find any unusual decorations. After saying this, the girl didn't say anything else. Teacher, Memphis is a long way away, you must take care of yourself, I will take good care of the affairs in the beautiful house. Mentuhotep bent down with a respectful look. Teddy pouted when he heard it. Am I worried about you? I'm worried that your fiancé will cause trouble to my workshop, okay? As if thinking of the scene of Shi occupying the beautiful house after he left, even though Teddy had been through many battles, he couldn't help but shudder. Mentuhotep paused when he saw the look on his teacher's face. Shi won't make any changes to the beautiful house while you're away, I promise. Teddy glanced at him and was indifferent to his promise. You promise? Can you promise anything? You are a man who spoils his wife to the point of having no principles. Mentuhotep frowned and looked helplessly at his fiancée. Shi received his look and snorted indifferently. Okay, old man, you can go with peace of mind. I don't even want to play with your so-called guests. They will stink if they are left for a long time. This was not a nice thing to say, but Teddy also knew that this little bastard would definitely do what she said, so there was no need to doubt her character. Then he nodded unhappily and reached out to knock on the handrail twice. This was all handled and he was going to set off. T clapped his hands, and the servants lifted the recliner and turned around, heading back the way they came. Amónhotep hurriedly ran 2 steps and followed the side of the recliner. Teacher, if you feel uncomfortable during this journey, you must see a doctor immediately and take medicine in time. His eyes were full of worry. Teddy was old and would easily get sick if he didn't pay attention. He didn't like to take medicine or see a doctor, so how could he not be worried? Teddy raised his hand and was about to interrupt his nagging, but another voice interrupted. Hey, the old man is not a child anymore, and it's not the first time he's gone on a long journey. He will take good care of himself, right, old man? Shi winked at Teddy and told him to respond quickly. If he didn't nod, Amónhotep would chase him to the dock and nag him. Teddy stared, and if he had a beard, it would have blown up by now, but he also knew his student's nagging skills very well, and reluctantly squeezed out a syllable similar to hum from his throat. Amónhotep finally gave up. As the group walked further and further away, the wind brought the girl's sweet cry, "Have a good trip, old man, you must come back soon. If you stay in Memphis for a year or two, my child will be born in the beautiful house when you come back." The old man on the chair was frightened by this shout. This little bastard actually wanted to give birth to a child in his beautiful house. The beautiful house was dark and gloomy, and no amount of incense could cover up the fishy smell. How could she bear it with so many things? Mostly she was angry with him. After a while, he reacted and leaned heavily on the recliner, covering his face with a handkerchief. Out of sight, out of mind. The tall young man covered Shi's mouth in shame and anger, but she seemed to want to say something, and a vague mumbling sound came out of her mouth. How could she talk about such things casually? Did she feel embarrassed? The two of them haven't gotten married yet. As if thinking of something, the young man's handsome face suddenly turned red. Having a child. It seems that he has to get married soon. He also wants a child. Oh. The cabin was a little suffocating at night, so Tia walked out from the deck and planned to go to the stern to blow the cool breeze. There was a dark figure standing at the stern. She paused for a moment, squinted her eyes and carefully identified it. After she knew who it was, she hesitated a little. It was Teddy, who had just boarded the ship during the day. Should she go and say hello? She was not sure. Teddy was a very boring old man. Maybe he always had some quirks when he was in a high position. In this respect, he was a bit similar to Busiri. He didn't say much to the people around him when he got on the ship. He kept stroking his tools. The various tools used for dissection flashed cold light under the sunlight, shining on the old man's hairless face, which had an especially gloomy feeling, making people shudder. Perhaps he was not used to leaving Abydos so suddenly, so he relaxed at the stern. Tia thought. "Good evening, Lord Teddy." Tia took a few steps forward and greeted the old man. Yet, Teddy turned his head slightly, and responded softly when he saw the person coming. He didn't come to find him on purpose, so there was no need to say anything since he had already greeted him. Tia walked to the other side of the stern. The cool evening breeze from the river made people feel particularly comfortable, and the oppressive atmosphere in the cabin was swept away. Her hair was blown up by the wind, fluttering and covering half of her face. She tilted her head and tucked her hair back, but suddenly saw Teddy's eyes on the opposite side. It was an indescribable inquiring look, mixed with a hint of coldness. Tia shuddered. "What's wrong, Lord Teddy? Why are you looking at me like that?" Teddy frowned, his old eyelids drooped. "Nothing, you have the same smell as she." "What smell?" Tia was stunned by this, and raised her sleeves to sniff twice. Did she smell something? It couldn't be a special spice smell. She didn't like the heavy spice smell of Kemet and never used it. Was it sweat? No, she had just taken a shower. Could it be that she had been with Tia for a long time and had a fragrance on her body? Tia frowned. No, he just said she. What is the relationship between her and she? The smell of decay. The wind blew the old man's voice into pieces, but it sounded like thunder in her ears. Tia was startled, and the sleeves she raised fell unconsciously, rustling in the wind. She laughed dryly. "Lord Teddy, you are joking. I am a living person, How can there be a smell of decay on me? You must have smelled it wrong. The gentle north wind turned into bone-chilling cold. She rubbed her shoulders, saluted Teddy vaguely, and turned to walk into the cabin. The eyes behind her were full of turmoil. She vaguely knew something. Decay? What would he mean the smell of decay? A dead tree? Or a corpse? Teddy. She was the same as her, a modern undead who had taken over someone else's body, and Teddy had obviously discovered something about the two of them. The footsteps behind him were messy and disorderly, and Teddy curled his lips silently. I never thought that this kind of thing would happen to me. I typed for a whole morning, and my friend asked me to type a book. I was so excited that I closed the web page, and then my words were gone. I cried so loudly. Exclamation mark. Ah. Chapter 104 Price. The further downstream you go, the more moist the air becomes. Without the hindrance of other things, Teddy also concentrates on sailing. After leaving about us, the ship has already passed the city of the god Ra in just a few days. The scenery changes along the way. Among the crisscrossing lotuses on the water, the first sedge representing the north emerges, followed by the second, the third, and then more and more, growing wantonly in patches. Teddy looked out the window and shook the sheets on the bed. Since entering the northern waters, her quilt has been damp, and she can't sleep well at night. No matter how you shake it, it's still like this. It's simply a waste of time. If you want to dehumidify it, the only way is to take it out and dry it. Looking at the half-open door, she paused and threw the sheets back on the bed. Forget it, just sleep like this, it doesn't matter if it's one night. Looking at the speed of travel, maybe we'll reach Memphis tonight, and then we won't have to sleep on the boat, and we'll have to part ways with that weird old man. Ever since they met on the deck that day and Teddy revealed her secret, she has never gone out again. She didn't know how much Teddy knew, and she didn't dare to bet on the possibility that he was just a blind cat catching a dead mouse. She felt so guilty that she didn't even dare to look the old man in the face again. It was not so much that she couldn't sleep well because of the damp heat, but that she was tossing and turning because of something on her mind. She began to be unable to sleep all night, with dark circles under her eyes that were scary. As soon as she closed her eyes, she had an overwhelming nightmare. In the dream, Gunyo held a flint knife in his hand, tied her tightly to the cross, and loudly questioned the whereabouts of her own little master. The dead lady Harriet opened her skinny and sharp fingers and choked her throat tightly, saying that she was a demon who invaded her daughter's body. The little priest who always passed messages to Busri raised the torch in his hand this time and lit the pile of dead wood under her feet. In the billowing smoke, her lover was looking at her from the other side of the fire. His brown eyes were full of disappointment and regret. He asked Busri to recite scriptures for him to completely drive away this demon from him. He turned back at her pleading, his eyes as cold as ice. Amónhotep, you don't deserve this name. I will exile you to the eternal night. Just this scene made her feel so miserable that she wanted to die, more sad and suffocated than all the previous ones. At first, T was curious about why she never showed up again, so he asked Ipe to invite her out to play. Later, Ipe reported back that Miss Tia didn't look very well. After he personally came to see her once, he didn't say anything. The reason was that her condition was really too bad. Her face was sallow and listless, as if something had sucked out her energy. In the bright daylight, she was either in a daze or sleeping. I really don't know how she did it. She can sleep so much and still have such big dark circles under her eyes. She doesn't even need to put on eye makeup. Not to mention, she has a decadent beauty. T was inspired by this and felt a new trend. He went back to his room to study for many days, and finally he made the same dark circles as Tia. He was very proud and strolled on the deck for many days with a panda makeup. There were 2 knocks on the door. Tia looked over listlessly and saw a pair of shiny slippers. Tia walked in nonchalantly, wearing new jewelry and clothes. His hair was also styled in a new style. He heard Tia mention punk a few days ago when they were chatting. He changed the style himself and only shaved one side of his ears. The rest of his hair was still mixed with a wig and tied on the other side, hanging loosely on his chest. The somewhat weird hairstyle matched his weird face, which surprisingly complemented each other. In addition, his deliberately made-up panda eyes revealed a cold and charming look, which was quite like the visual style of the early 1990s. Tia raised her eyes and curled her lips silently. If he changed his outfit, he could go to the stage to play rock and roll directly. Is it a special day today? You are dressed so showy? The unusually large earrings swung back and forth on his shoulders, and they jingled when they touched the large necklace on his neck. The necklace, which was made of colorful beads in the shape of various exotic flowers and plants, pressed down the pure white cardigan. 2 tall sedges were embroidered with the gold thread on the left and right edges. He remembered to wear a belt today. A piece of bright red linen was wrapped around his waist twice, and it was decorated with some solid colored glass beads, outlining his slender waist comparable to that of a woman. The translucent fabric vaguely revealed his long legs. This outfit was so formal and informal that it was hard to imagine what he was going to do. Huh? My crew told me that if nothing unexpected happened, we would arrive in Memphis today. Of course, I'm preparing to meet the prince. T looked at the corner of his clothes and turned around like a display, with various accessories jingling. Are you going to participate in a beauty pageant? To fill up His Highness Sepal's harem. Tia looked up at him with a smile on her lips. She was in a pretty good mood now. It had been a long time since she felt that she had returned to her original self. When others mentioned Sepal, she didn't feel that heart-wrenching sadness. She had thought about it these days and thought that it might be because the original owner was too unwilling to die that she had experienced the out-of-control situation before. However, everything is over now, and it seems that the unwillingness has completely dissipated. Not only can she now talk about Sepal with others calmly, but she can also make a harmless little joke like this. Huh? You're talking nonsense. I'm normal. I like women. Tu reacted and yelled angrily, a little exasperated. He hated it most when people said he was not like a man. Tia raised her eyelids, held her chin with her palm, and sighed. I always feel that a man like you should be with a heroic man. Kemet does not prohibit such things. Gay love has existed since ancient times. Same-sex people can love each other. Such things are common among the people, and there have even been precedents where the king is keen on this. There is a story circulating in Kemet about the interesting things between the great King Pepi of the Old Kingdom and his general. The king would visit the courtyard of his wifeless minister alone in the dark night and throw a brick on his roof. When the minister heard the noise, he would put down a ladder and invite the king to go up. Then the king would not go back to his palace until he had done everything he wanted to do. I'll tell you again, I like women. T gritted his teeth, his face almost turned as black as the bottom of a pot. Yes, you like women, you like women. This absent-minded expression is just like coaxing an ignorant child. I tell you, even if I like women, I won't like unkempt women like you. We are about to get off the boat, you'd better tidy yourself up. Getting on the same boat with someone as sloppy as you will lower my taste. T snorted angrily, shook his wide sleeves, and was so angry that he wanted to leave. Hey, if we get off the boat today, we will go our separate ways tonight, right? Dia raised her eyebrows and asked lazily. Yes, we will go our separate ways today. If you can swim, I don't mind you getting off the boat now. T hugged his arms and said coldly, the speed of changing his face is faster than turning a book, and he immediately returned to the tit-for-tat when they first met. Not that bad, right? Lord De? I just want to ask you, did you forget to take my long hair? This is the price he promised to pay, and now he is about to reach his destination, but he seems to have forgotten. In this case, let's remind him. The sooner you cut it off, the sooner the problem will be solved. It's better not to wait for him to ask himself. After 92 days and many interruptions, my first push is finally here. Can I get some more cute little ones this time? Chapter 105 Acacia. The light from the window shone into the room with the rise and fall of the boat. I haven't decided on the style of the new wig yet, and I don't know how long it should be. I can't do this until I meet His Highness Sepal and get his opinion. When the time comes, you can come to the Memphis Palace and tell me my name, and I will show up naturally. Tu was stunned for a moment, and smiled very officially. Don't worry, this is the reward I deserve, and I won't forget it. He couldn't tell what he was angry about, but when he heard her say that they were going their separate ways so happily, he couldn't help but feel a sense of suffocation in his heart, and it showed on his face. What was he angry about? Wasn't she right? The message that Busri brought was to ask him to bring her to Memphis. Now that Memphis was about to arrive, wasn't it normal to go their separate ways? He admitted that these days of getting along had made him have some different feelings for Tia, and it was normal to be reluctant to part with a friend, but the road of life was so long, and even a shadow wouldn't always be by his side at a certain time. Why should he make such an inappropriate request to a stranger? Yes, a stranger, he laughed at himself. She was talking to him like this, clearly treating him as a stranger. Maybe in her heart, he was just a kind-hearted boat donor. Tiai's lips moved, not knowing what to say. She also knew that Tiai was probably angry. She had been confused recently. Others said that women were the most unreasonable. In her opinion, Tiai was even more unreasonable than herself. Thank you for your care during this period. No matter when we meet again, you will always be my friend. This voice contained full of sincerity. Tiai's footsteps, which were about to reach the door, paused slightly, and his face looked a little better. I won't stay on the ship for much longer. If you have nothing to do, go out and get some fresh air, so that you don't get lice again. You are still kind. Thinking that this is not something that an angry person should say, Tiai pursed his nose. The best shaku in the kingdom, the people traveling with him actually have disgusting lice. This is really terrible. Too terrible. He walked out while muttering, as if it was really the case. Tiai laughed out loud, and felt a lot better. Lice? The cabin is humid and hot. Maybe they will really get lice in this environment. Then give him face and go out to take a look. As for Teddy, if we meet, then so be it. He won't do anything to me anyway. It's easy to imagine. If she is the same as me, then she has been with Teddy for so long, and nothing has happened to her. How can I do that? In the end, it's just her own fault. She doesn't know how to face it after being poked. If she is thicker-skinned, many things may not be like this. Lord Teddy, as soon as she left the cabin, she saw the person she least wanted to see. Not knowing whether it was too coincidental or too unlucky, Tia twitched her lips. Maybe all those who are worthy of being high priests have such a calm and indifferent attitude, like a hermit? Teddy just nodded slightly. Even if he responded to this, his expression was no different from before, as if what happened at the stern a few days ago was just an ordinary question and answer, nothing special. Seeing him like this, Tia breathed a sigh of relief. This is the best, and she doesn't have to take it seriously anymore. After greeting each other, Tia took a half step back. At the moment when they passed each other, she seemed to hear something. She suppressed the doubt in her heart and resisted the urge to turn back. She didn't want to listen. No matter what Teddy said, she didn't want to listen. But what if he wanted to remind her of something? Master Teddy, may I ask, what did you say just now? I didn't hear it clearly. The acacia is blooming. It's really a beautiful flower. Teddy didn't answer his question. He raised his head slightly and looked into the distance. His voice was ethereal and empty. Acacia? What is acacia? But it turned out that it was calling me? Tia couldn't figure it out, so she could only turn back silently. Teddy looked at the girl's back, with a meaningful expression on his face. She didn't know that the so-called decayed smell was not something that could be smelled. Teddy had been living with corpses and undead for a long time, and with his unparalleled perception, no obscure things could escape his eyes. She was like that, and so was she. But Shi's situation was obviously much better than hers, but it didn't matter, she wouldn't encounter any danger. Her future would be as bright and brilliant as the acacias blooming all over the city. Where are we? The scenery on both sides of the river changed again. Tia looked up and asked Tyi who was leaning on the bow. He was leaning back like that, with most of his body outside the boat. Wasn't he afraid that a gust of wind would blow him off? His long hair hung behind his head, swaying rhythmically with the wind. When he saw people coming, he didn't intend to stand up straight. He stretched out an arm and pointed behind him, saying lazily, "Congratulations, we will soon part ways. My good friend, just forget about this word I said." Tia laughed helplessly and said flatteringly, "Let's get over this, let's get over it, she knows she was wrong, homo." He deliberately dragged out his voice. Seeing him like this, Tia didn't say anything. She walked a few steps to the bow and pushed T aside. "Make way, leave some room for me." T was born thin, and when she pushed him aside, a large space was directly created. He frowned, but didn't show any resistance. The two of them leaned against the board side by side at the bow, like two salted fish being fried in a pan. Suddenly, a faint fragrance appeared in the air. Tia sniffed hard. "What's that smell? It smells good." This smell was familiar, but she couldn't remember where she had smelled it before. She asked Tia. As a knowledgeable shaku, he must be an expert on things like fragrance. "Why do you have to ask me?" Tia pursed his lips and raised his hand to cover his face with his wide sleeves. "Just look for yourself and smell the increasingly strong fragrance in your nose." A salted fish on the bow turned over and looked forward. Large patches of golden clouds flew from the horizon to the front, with a dazzling fragrance, and a strong and gorgeous oil painting feeling. The blue was the sky above, the green was the tender branches and leaves, and the golden was the delicate flowers. One by one, golden balls were hung in clusters on the branches, occasionally hiding in between, like stars in the clear sky, or like fireflies flying over the water. That was where the strong fragrance came from. In an instant, she traced back to the source of that familiar feeling. It turned out that there really were such strange flowers in this world. She thought that because she was dreaming, everything in the dream was a fantasy variety she had imagined. In the dream, the colorful temple of Horus, the lake with wind in the lobby, the island emerging in the center, the golden and dazzling trees, the boy surrounded by the fragrance of flowers, and that deep kiss that tossed and turned. This flower is really fragrant. I have never seen it before, she murmured to herself. The other salted fish also moved. Maybe the temperature in the pot was a little high. He got up and turned over, and changed to lying on the bow. It's Acacia, an ignorant bumpkin. Tu pouted and propped up his chin with his hand. He glanced at the girl next to him. No way? I just said you are unsophisticated. Are you so shameless? Tu shouted exaggeratedly. Tu raised her hand and touched her face. Sure enough, she felt a little hot. Really red. No way, is it that obvious? Like another incarnation of the god Thoth, the baboon. Tu gestured with his fingers and drew the outline of a monkey in the air. Is he calling her a monkey? Tu was stunned and pursed her lips fiercely. Forget it, don't be angry, monkey is a monkey. Anyway, we will be separated soon, and I don't know when I will want to listen to him again. Recommended for 1 day, collection +0, suspicious people are very. Chapter 106 Thirst. What does Acacia mean? Dia blinked her eyes, imitated him, lifted her chin with her hand, and looked at the water lilies and clumps of sedge floating on the river. People who have never seen Acacia saw it in their dreams. The mysterious Teddy said that Acacia is beautiful. Is this a coincidence? What can it mean? Ti's eyes were a little puzzled. Then why have I only seen it here? Dia thought about what Teddy said before. For some reason, she always felt that there was something behind his words. That's because you haven't walked around more. If you had walked more, you would have seen it. T rolled his eyes, as if the boat board was hurting him. He moved again. This time he sat directly on the deck, not looking at the scenery, and lazily leaned his back against the side of the boat. Maybe he felt that they were about to leave, so he didn't dislike T as many questions as usual. He sat on the ground and talked a lot. Speaking of Acacia, Memphis has the most. Do you know who the god of Memphis is? Ta. She knew this. Ta was another great god in Kemet with a green-skinned mummy image, but he had hands, and his hands were stretched out, holding a very complicated scepter. That's right. It's Ta. Do you know who his wife is? T asked her, shaking his head. It seemed that he really thought she was a novice who knew nothing. Seeing his attitude, Tia suddenly felt like laughing, and even wanted to serve him a plate of peanuts and a bottle of erguotao. He looked like a northern elder brother chatting at a Chinese table. But he stumped her now. She really didn't know who the wife of the great god was. Tia shook her head as if she was lamenting that the world was going downhill and people nowadays didn't even know the names of the great gods. It's Sekhmet. Remember it. Don't say you don't know when someone asks you. The wife of the great god is the goddess of war Sekhmet. Their child is the lotus god Nefertim. You walk in Memphis, but you don't even know the name of the main god. Aren't you afraid of being beaten? Okay, I remember it. It's Sekhmet. Tia nodded randomly with a smile. What does this have to do with Acacia? Why is Tia going off topic? You didn't listen carefully when you first guessed. Acacia is the sacred tree of the goddess Sekhmet, so there are the most acacias in the temple dedicated to her and the surrounding areas. Memphis is Ta's territory, and Sekhmet is his wife, so of course acacias bloom the most prosperously. Tia finished a long speech, and then, as if he had lost his strength, he slowly slid down on the deck. Tia didn't pay attention to him, and was still thinking about what he had just said. Is Acacia the most prosperous in Memphis? And that dream, she had come to the place where acacias bloomed, does it mean that she will definitely meet Aksha, or Amónhotep, here this time? Her goal this time will definitely be achieved, right? Then if this dream really foreshadows these, Then what do the Temple of Horus and the red and white crown worn by Aksha represent respectively? There was a bang sound from the side, and she turned around in surprise and found that Tie had completely fallen down. The sound just now was the sound of his head sliding down and hitting the deck. At a glance, she found that T's face was also very red. Maybe it was because his skin color was darker, so I didn't notice it just now. His eyelids were half closed and drooping, and he was mumbling something in his mouth. Dia suspected that he had a fever. Just when she wanted to touch his forehead with her hand, she suddenly smelled a very light smell of alcohol. She laughed dumbly. T, is he drinking? No wonder he said so much nonsense just now. But why did he drink? When he arrived in Memphis later, wouldn't he have important things to do? Would it be delayed by then? Is it really okay for him to do this? Her strange feeling had disappeared long ago. Now she was not worried about Sepal's final identity at all. Instead, she was a little worried that His Royal Highness would see T's behavior and get angry again. In a rage, he couldn't help but snap him. I don't know if Kemet has hangover soup. Never mind, just treat it as something I owe him. We are about to part ways, so I will run errands for Lord T again. When I heard that T was drunk, he was stunned for a moment. A rare expression of surprise appeared on his calm face. At least I had never seen her show such an expression. It was always dignified and steady in front of her, and everything was under control. Is there anything that surprised Ipt? Tia raised her eyebrows. The mint on the ship has been used up. I'm afraid there is no way to make a hangover soup. Ipt quickly sorted out his expression and returned to his original calm look. Ipt has been following T for many years. He is indeed a little weird and casual, but he is absolutely passionate about his work. Work is always the first priority at all times, and nothing can make him give up this principle. Now they are about to arrive in Memphis. Drinking at this time will undoubtedly affect his work and His Highness Sepal's impression of him. T has no reason to do this. This matter did make Ipt curious, but as a responsible maid, she knew very well what to ask and what not to ask. There is no need to know the master's affairs. Is there any honey on the ship? Dia scratched her head and asked again. There shouldn't be a shortage of honey, right? With Ti's picky personality, how could he tolerate no honey during meals? But she didn't know if honey could help sober up. She seemed to vaguely remember that whenever her father drank too much, her mother would make him a cup of thick honey water to drink, and her father would feel much better after drinking it. At this point, she should give it to Ti. Anyway, it can't be worse than it is now. Sure enough, there was no shortage of honey on the ship. I brought out a small jar and let her mix a cup of full honey water. Dia squinted her eyes, intoxicated by the smell. Not bad, not bad. Just smelling it is different from the honey in modern times. After drinking this cup, the effect must be immediate. Returning to the bow, Ti on the deck changed his posture again. His body rotated a degree. He was upright when he walked just now, but now he was horizontal. She smacked her lips, squatted down and patted T's face twice with her hands. Hey! Wake up! After patting twice, there was no response. She muttered and applied more force, and T's face suddenly turned redder. Wake up! You can't expect her to do it like in idol dramas, right? No way. As if sensing her strong resistance, T opened his eyes slowly, a little confused. Dia used some force to help him up, let him lean against a bow, and put the cup into his hand. A drunkard is a drunkard. T took it in a daze, and drank it all in one breath without caring what it was. Honey is indeed pure honey, and honey water is indeed a good medicine for hangovers. After only a quarter of an hour, T gradually sobered up. Why are you looking at me like that? When T opened his eyes, he was startled by a big face in front of him. Didn't he just give her a lesson? Why is he so close? And with this expression? You've drunk too much, you know. Tia said unhappily. Now it was her turn to roll her eyes. Drunk too much? Tia paused, remembering something. He had indeed drunk just now. I said, we're going to Memphis soon, don't you know that? Why did you drink so much? Tia mumbled in his ear. He heard the expression on his face. Nothing, you know beer is a drink. I was thirsty just now. You have to drink within your means even if you're thirsty? You drank so much? I really don't know what to say to you. Alright, I'll go back and pack my luggage, so I don't have to rush around later. The girl's figure shrank smaller and smaller in his sight. Tia's mouth curled up a faint smile. Yes, just a little thirsty just now, a little careless. I drank more and more, that's right, that's all. Maybe it's because I haven't written about the serious male and female protagonists recently, so you all feel it's a bit boring. Well, but I have to say that this is an important part that cannot be skipped. As for the male protagonist, our King Amónhotep will make a grand comeback in about 20 chapters, right? Chapter 107 Arrival. After more than half a month of sailing, the group finally arrived at their final destination, the ancient capital of Memphis. Memphis is close to the northern delta, but not on the delta. It controls the route to the delta, connecting Sinai to the east and Libya to the west. No matter which direction of the north there is trouble, it can reach the battlefield as quickly as possible through here. It has been a military stronghold since ancient times. Tiaia always thought that the so-called ancient capital of Memphis was just a big city like Abydos. No matter how big or beautiful it was not as big or beautiful as Thebes. But when she really got off the boat and stepped onto the ferry at the city gate, she found that she was wrong, so wrong. At the beginning of the history of the unification of Kemet, Memphis was designated as the capital by King Menes. Since then, in the long history, the glory of the god Da has always favored it. Except for a few dynasties, almost all kings chose Memphis and maintained the habit of King Menes, always letting it face the world with a pure white face. Later, the unified kingdom fell apart, and the hero of the south rose again and unified the two lands again. This time the new king did not choose it, but chose his hometown Thebes, and raised the patron saint of his hometown, Amon, to the height of the national patron saint, replacing Memphis into. Memphis has always had a nickname, called the White City. As for why it is called the White City, of course it means literally. The white paint is evenly applied to every corner of the city wall, making the whole city radiate a holy light. As the capital of all dynasties, it is of course large and beautiful. On the way here, Tiaia had seen the sacred tree of the city, the golden wattle. She thought that the beauty on the road was extremely beautiful, but she didn't expect that she was short-sighted. The beauty at this moment was the most beautiful in the world. Under the towering white city walls, the banks of the Nile River, where the water was flowing, were actually wandering a golden sea, with occasional scattered palm trees interspersed among them, and from time to time a few frogs were heard from them. It was evening, the sky was about to get dark, and there were already few pedestrians on the pier. The sun set in the sky, and the last light of the sky covered the white city walls with a layer of warm gauze. The leaves of the golden wattle were closed, which made the flowers bloom more brilliantly, and the beauty was like a dream. Memphis, is this Memphis? Tiaia narrowed her eyes slightly. The wind brought a rich fragrance of flowers, and in front of her was a white city wall. More than a month ago, did the boy in her heart stand in the same place as her, admiring the same golden wattle? It doesn't matter. Although he came a month earlier, she already has a direction. She will find him. She wants to hug him and talk to him about her feelings in her heart. She will put her true heart that she has never expressed in front of him. There were some sporadic noises behind her. She looked back. T's servants had packed his luggage and taken it off the ship. He had a lot of things. There was a small mountain piled up at the dock. Among them were things he brought when he boarded the ship, and more were things he bought on the way. In contrast, Teddy's luggage was pitifully small in comparison. There was only a wooden box, but the weight, it can only be said that one section is better than six. The servant who was carrying it was tired and his face flushed. Finally, he compromised, waved his hand, and called another person to help carry it. 2 chairs have been assembled and are waiting for T and Teddy to sit on. Teddy said nothing, straddled his legs, sat on the recliner, covered his face with his long sleeves, and began to close his eyes to rest. Tiaia didn't. He stood there and looked at Tiaia with a complicated expression, hesitant to speak. When the two looked at each other, it was Tiaia who spoke first. Well, we've arrived in Memphis. So, it's time to go our separate ways. She was not very good at facing this kind of separation. It must be said that after these days of getting along, Tiaia has become a very important friend in her heart. Now she really didn't know what to say. When you arrived in Memphis, no one came to pick you up. Tiaia was silent for a long time, frowning and asked. She changed into the clothes she had just boarded the ship, a long robe, a khaki headscarf, and a big package that was not much smaller than her. She looked like a fool. It was easy to deceive at first glance. It was about to get dark. He would not feel at ease to leave such a person alone on the dock even if he was a stranger, let alone a friend who had been with him day and night for so long. He was worried about going to the palace like this. No, the person I'm looking for doesn't know I'm in Memphis yet. The idiot on the other side scratched his head in confusion. Tie frowned even more. No one came to pick her up? No one came to pick her up. Where would she find someone in such a big city like Memphis? The more she thought about it, the more unreliable it seemed. Then do you know where he lives? I'll send someone to take you there, he said in a deep voice. It would be better to take her there so that he would know where she lives. She could come here alone. If she was bullied, he could help her. I don't know either. She looked even more stupid. Although it was late, the temperature was not low at all. Fine beads of sweat oozed from the tip of her nose, which made Tia angry. She took 2 steps over and pulled off the annoying headscarf, and threw it into the Nile River. Hey, my headscarf. The burden on her body was too heavy. She reached out to grab it, but it was in vain. The khaki color swirled in the water and rolled farther and farther with the river. Are you stupid? Aren't you afraid of dying of heat in such a hot day? If you want to go out, you should know where you are going before you go, right? For someone like you, you're afraid of becoming stupid after killing meat. Tia spat out a bunch of angry words like a machine gun, which frightened Tia so much that she shrank her neck. Seeing her like this, Tia became even angrier. He didn't know this, he didn't know that, he didn't know where he would die. The words he wanted to curse her were stuck in his throat and he swallowed them back. He didn't want to curse her with the word death. Tia, don't be angry. He doesn't know I'm coming, but Lord Busiri gave me the direction. Lord Busiri told me that he lives in the largest courtyard in Memphis. He should be the largest merchant in Memphis. It's easy to find. Tia saw Tia's furious look and felt a little scared. She hurriedly explained and told her everything that Busiri had told her. She also knew that Tia was worried about her. But they had already arrived in Memphis. No matter how good a friend was, he couldn't ask for help for everything. It was good enough that he could bring her here from Naken. Tia's eyes were red because of her anger. His lips moved, but he didn't say anything. Tia thought that the matter was over, and she was slightly relieved. Although she didn't know where she would stay tonight, she believed that she had come such a long way, and there would be no more accidents in this last section. Suddenly, she felt a lightness on her back, and the sweaty cloth on her back felt cool. She raised her head in surprise. Tia didn't say anything, but his action said it all. He grabbed the heavy package and threw it to the servant behind him. Okay, don't say anything. Come back to Memphis Palace with me today. I'll send you out tomorrow. You can look for it wherever you want. If you can't find it, I'll send someone to help you look for it. That's it. Tia didn't give her time to think and made the final decision. What else is there to think about? She didn't even have a place to live. Now that she had sent herself away, she would go back to sleep on the streets of Memphis? The largest merchant and the largest courtyard in Memphis. Memphis is so big, and there are so many merchants. With a little girl who is unfamiliar with the place, who knows how long it will take for her to find it? This is too much trouble, she was stunned and refused subconsciously. Normally, she would not do such a thing to pretend to be rich. She had nowhere to go but she still insisted. But this time, for some reason, she vaguely felt that if she followed Tia, something out of her control might happen. Trouble? Why didn't you think it was a trouble for me when you insisted on taking my ship to Memphis? Tia was almost laughed at by her. She was not pretentious when she should be, and she was more pretentious than anyone else when she shouldn't be. Are women such twisted creatures? Okay, now that it's come to this, it's really not right to refuse. Then she would go to the Memphis Palace with him first. Anyway, she is really homeless now. Chapter 108 Danger. The Memphis Palace was very large. Just as Tia had assured her, there were many rooms and they would not live together. They arrived a little late today. His Highness Sepal was weak and could not stand the wait. He had already gone to bed. The meeting with the prince was changed to the next morning. In fact, given their identities and the status of His Highness, they were not qualified to make the prince wait. After hearing this news, Tia finally let go of the stone in her heart. She was unwilling to go to the palace with Tia because of this factor. She was not sure whether Sepal still remembered her. After all, she was his former fiancée. Moreover, on such an important occasion, Sepal personally proposed to Rhea. It would be difficult for him to forget such a thing in such a person, right? What if Sepal recognized her when they met? What should he say then? He is now Militoman's fiancé. Should he call me brother-in-law? Hello, brother-in-law. I am your former fiancé and now your sister-in-law. What are you doing in Memphis? Looking for my sweetheart. Thinking about such a meeting is really embarrassing. Fortunately, the meeting time has been adjusted to later time. She will leave tomorrow, and she doesn't have to face such an embarrassing situation. The palace servant who led them walked in front. She was a very strict female official. Almost no one spoke little. Teddy has always been a quiet person, not to mention Tiai. He has always been very cold in front of outsiders, and Tiai is even more so. It was the first time to come to the inner courtyard of the palace, and she was very nervous. It was so quiet along the way that only the footsteps of a group of people could be heard. There are exotic flowers and plants everywhere in the palace, and the light gauze flutters in the night wind. There are sedge plaster columns that are not much shorter than those in the temple. Like the walls, they depict the scenes of the gods and the king getting along, and the colors are bold and bright. Such a scene should still be beautiful in the daytime, but now it is night. Today's moon is a new moon, just a crescent line. It's pitch black outside, and you can't see your hand in front of you. The palace is still brighter, but it's better not to be bright. Every few steps, there is a grease-soaked torch on the wall. The flames illuminate everything around. The dancing flames shine on the faces of the people on the murals, which are weird no matter how you look at them, not to mention the veil that is raised from time to time, which makes people feel like they are in a horror movie. At Tiai's request, the female official was the first to send Tiai to her residence. He was still careful and saw that she was a little nervous. He was worried that if he was the last one to send her, she would be scared. There was a dark square entrance between the two towering pillars, and a few sporadic candlelights came out from it. The female official stopped and made a gesture of invitation. It was a little dark inside. Tiai rubbed her arms and looked at Tiai. Seeing that he looked normal, she felt a little confident. In fact, it was much darker at night in Nakan City, but this place was a strange place after all, which made her feel more suspicious. No matter what, T would definitely not harm her. This was also the inner courtyard of the palace, with strict guards. What could happen? Thinking of this, she stepped into the door, stood in the door, turned her head, and said goodnight to T and Teddy. T smiled slightly and responded to her, but Teddy's reaction was a little strange. According to his usual habit, he would probably just nod and ignore such greetings, but now, he unexpectedly took a step forward. Don't wander around in the palace. Teddy looked at her, and the words he said were not good night as everyone thought. He raised his old eyelids, and his eyes were deep. Danger. Ah. Okay, I know. His expression was really serious. Tia responded hesitantly, with a lot of doubts in her heart. Teddy said nothing more. The footsteps of Soso gradually faded away, and he and T disappeared into the thick night. T had previously told the Memphis official who received them that Tio was a very important friend of his, so they did not dare to neglect her. All the furnishings in the room were of the same standard as those given to T. The floor was covered with soft and thick carpets, and all the furniture was made of imported cedar wood, some of which were even gilded. Various decorations were neatly placed, and the whole space was filled with a strong aroma of freshly burned spices. In the middle was a large bed, and in addition to the necessary straw mat, there was also a layer of cushion on the bedboard. Such a bed should be quite comfortable. After being bumpy on the ship for more than half a month, one should fall asleep in seconds when lying on it. But for some reason, Tia lay on it, looking out the dark window, and she didn't feel sleepy at all. In fact, since she stepped into the palace today, she felt that something in her body had changed. The out-of-control mood on the boat showed signs of revival again, and the feeling of uneasiness surged into her heart again. She really couldn't figure out anything, and this little sign was fleeting, so she had to suspect that she was overthinking and too nervous. What did Teddy mean when they parted just now? Danger? What kind of danger? Tia frowned, thinking for a long time but still couldn't figure it out. She instinctively felt that something was wrong. Was he warning herself that if she walked around randomly, she would be discovered by the guards in the palace and arrested as an assassin? Thinking this way, it seemed that there was nothing wrong. No matter where she was, it would always be good to be more stable. But he should have thought too much. She was just a passerby. She would settle down tonight and leave here tomorrow. She would not wander around like a headless fly. The candlelight in the room flickered, and the one closest to the bed had turned into a small ball the size of a dark blue bean. A gust of wind blew in, suddenly extinguishing the last trace of candlelight, and the room suddenly became dark. The fatigue of trekking for many days finally hit her mind, and she leaned on the pillow and fell into deep sleep. "Your Highness." The servant beside him reminded him, and Amónhotep came back to his senses. There was a small stain of paint on the important document that was sent to him for approval. He smiled and shook his head, raised his hand and painted the dirty spot into a black ball. "Go tell Babur to write another copy and send it." "Yes." This smile made the servant stunned. His Highness Amónhotep hurried to Memphis without his personal servant. He was sent by His Highness Sefer to take care of him. In his cognition, this young prince seemed to be a very cold person. This was the first time he saw His Highness smile. It must be said that the royal family was really loved by Amon-Ra. From His Majesty the King to His Highness Amónhotep in front of him, their appearances were all first class and outstanding. He now suddenly understood why those noble ladies in Thebes were so eager to chase the two princes. If he could always have this smile at this moment, it would be worth giving up everything. After loosening his fingers that were sore from writing for a long time, Amónhotep raised his head and looked out the window through the burning brazier. It has been more than a month since he came to Memphis. I wonder what she is doing in Aten now? Does she miss him? She should, right? The love between each other has been figured out. She should understand that Anhinus Amónhotep, was born for her, because she knew that there was such a beautiful emotion in the world. It's just that there are much more things to deal with than in Aten, and the day of returning is far away. With such a heavy workload, even a healthy person like me still feels a bit overwhelmed. My brother has been dragging a sick body to support me for so long. I really can't be willful anymore. The sky in the south is dark. He reached out and pressed his chest. She said she would wait for him. He also believed that the day of returning home would not be far away. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelists. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 109 The Night of the Flood Festival. It was bright outside the window. Tia woke up with a startle from the noisy footsteps outside the window. She rubbed her forehead with a headache. Is it morning already? Why does it feel like I didn't sleep for long? Strangely enough, she had that dream again. She couldn't remember how long it had been since she had dreamed about Sepal. It seemed that she hadn't had it since the day Teddy got on the ship. It was only the first day in Memphis. How could it start again? This dream was different from the usual ones. It was clearer than before. Tia's eyes were empty and she began to recall. It was at this year's flood festival. Poor thing. Why are you walking so fast? Even if you squeeze to the front, what can you do? Do you think that if you stand at the front, His Royal Highness will be able to see you first? Stop dreaming. Melida's noisy shouting was in her ears, and she didn't even turn her head. You've lost your temper? Do you think you can get out again after you get out this time? Don't forget that my mud is the main wife. It's not much harder to deal with you than to crush an ant. Melitaman was a little angry. She felt that this poor guy who looked at people's faces didn't respect her very much today. She was just a bastard without mutt. Her father didn't pay much attention to her for so many years. She might be the bastard born by her dirty mud and someone else. Did you listen to me? She couldn't bear it anymore and yelled loudly, forgetting that Circa told her to be more elegant when going out, so as to leave a good impression on others. Seeing the surprised looks from others, Melitaman gritted her teeth. Bastard, it's all this bastard's fault. If it weren't for her, she wouldn't have been embarrassed at all. The person walking in front turned his head back without saying anything, and glanced up and down at Melitaman a few times, as if he was looking at a madman. After just one glance, she turned back and continued to squeeze into the crowd. Melita was so angry that she jumped up and down. She had some minor defects and could not walk that fast. She could only watch Tia walk further and further away. There were so many people that the area near the riverbank was crowded. Tia squeezed in with great effort and stood at the front of the crowd. The big ship with the image of the god Amon was firmly fixed on the dock and floated up little by little as the flood rose. There was a loud sound of musical instruments being struck on the ship, and the people on both sides began to pour offerings into the river. Baskets of bread, roasted meat, flowers, and large jars of milk were poured into the river. The water surface was covered with turbid waves, and the people danced to the music or sang along. The part that belonged to the king had passed, and the part below belonged to the regent prince. The ceremonial officer on the ship cleared his throat, and the bronze mirror in front of the brazier turned around and shone on the young man standing in the middle of the bow. His Highness Sapel. It's His Highness Sapel. The girls shouted loudly, and the sound wave set off another wave of enthusiasm. Sapel wore a shawl made of fine linen, tied back and forth in a complicated knot, with the extra piece draped over his arm. The thickness of the black wig was just right, not as thick as the popular ones nowadays, just a thin layer, hanging down to his shoulders, with some lapis lazuli on it. He didn't wear too many accessories, only a necklace like a row of copper coins on his neck, and a traditional royal snake-shaped headband on his forehead. The headband was tight, pushing the wig back, revealing a perfect face, eyes like stars, and full lips. He heard the girls shouting, looked in that direction, and smiled gently. The crowd was boiling again. This scene was not much worse than the modern star chasing. Tia heard that the girl closest to her was about to shout. Her voice split. Militaman and Circa squeezed to the front row with great difficulty. Circa saw the girl standing in front of her at a glance. She gently shook Militaman's arm. Tia has already reached the river. Circa said so, with a dark look in her eyes. Mutt. Militaman, my dear daughter, Tia is so outstanding, and now she is so close to the front. If His Royal Highness notices her, what will you do? Circa moved her fingertips and sighed softly. Her? Me. Militaman's mind buzzed when she heard this, and a sense of shame and anger rose in her heart. This bastard? She wants to be a princess? What about me? She is better than the one I married? Why? She is just a bastard without Mutt. Hey, my daughter, it's Mutt who is sorry for you. It would be better if she didn't exist. Circa covered her mouth with her hand, knowing that she had said something wrong, and her voice was just the right amount of regret. It would be fine without her. It would be fine without her. Militaman looked at the small figure in front of her absent-mindedly, with the light in her eyes flickering. The flood is so big every year during the flood festival, and there are so many people. If someone accidentally falls into the water, I'm afraid they won't survive. Circa looked at the riverbank and spoke faintly. This sentence gave Militaman inspiration. She walked forward a few steps like a possessed person and stretched out her hands. Yes, there are so many people here, and it's not surprising to fall into the water. When the festival continues for a while, people will be happy and jump into the river to get contaminated by the holy water. Tia has never been out of the house and can't swim. As long as she falls in, there is no possibility of survival. With a push of her open hands, the figure fell into the water as she wished, splashing a big splash of water. The dark river water rushed towards Dia. She struggled in vain in the water, like a deer caught in a hunter's trap. The more she struggled, the deeper she sank. What she breathed through her nose was not fresh air, but large streams of dirty water. The water was sucked into her trachea. She wanted to cough, but she couldn't. Her cry for help was drowned in the jubilant crowd. She raised her eyes in despair and looked at the high and mighty young man for the last time. Great God Amon-Ra, the young man in front of you is your most loyal believer. Your most sacred blood flows in his body. For the first time in history, the pupils of the protagonist, the prince, suddenly shrank, and the long cloth slipped from his raised hands. Someone fell into the water. His handsome eyebrows wrinkled into a ball, and he interrupted the long praise of the ceremonial officer. Your Highness, this is disrespectful to the gods. Please continue your ceremony. I said. Someone fell into the water. He looked at the still indifferent ceremonial officer with sharp eyes. He suppressed his anger and pulled off the shawl. Your Highness. The guard beside him pulled Sapel back, looked at the ripples on the water, and jumped in for him, swimming towards the girl who disappeared in the water. Your Highness, maybe she didn't fall into the water, but went to the river to feel the baptism of the happy god. The ceremonial officer explained beside Sapel. This kind of thing is not without precedent. Every year during the flood festival, there are always a few people who jump into the water with the sacrifices. Besides, most of the Kemet people are good at water, so there will definitely be no accidents. Glancing at the enthusiastic girls on the shore, the ceremonial officer secretly speculated in his heart, maybe the one just now wanted to attract the attention of your Highness like now? Militaman stood on the shore, staring blankly at everything that happened. It was the first time she had done such an act of deliberate murder, and her hands were shaking with fear. Mutt. Will Mutt punish me? Circa put his arm around her shoulders soothingly, stroking her back again and again, and coaxed her gently. No, my daughter, she is a person abandoned by God. Mot will not punish you. It is a mistake for her to be alive. Circa's words carried an indescribable magic. Mut, is it really a mistake for her to be alive? Militaman watched the person disappear from the water, and suddenly felt another kind of relaxation in her heart. She was finally dead and would never block her way again. Yes, she shouldn't have been alive. Circa smiled, her voice very firm. Even God would not punish them for this matter. Instead, he would greatly reward them. That person deserved to die. It's time to be a Buddhist. I will never look at the data again. Chapter 110 Rescue of Sepal. It is useless to think too much about this kind of thing. This is the first time that Tia has watched this memory of the original owner from the first person's perspective. After crossing over, she only watched it superficially and did not study it in depth. From the stream, she once again seemed to be possessed by the original owner, feeling everything that had happened to her. In her senses, at the flood festival in Memphis, it was obvious that someone deliberately pushed her into the water because she could not swim. There was no need to think about who this person was. Except for the mother and daughter, no one else would hate her so much. Her drooping eyes darkened, she put her hand on her chest and solemnly promised, "Don't worry, I will avenge you. Those who hurt you should be punished as they should be." The sun shone in from the window. She got up and tidied the bed she had slept on. She turned around and went out without any nostalgia. The most urgent task now was to find the boy in her heart. The hints given by Busri were enough, and it shouldn't take much effort. When she walked out of the door, the chaos outside was beyond her imagination. The messy palace servants were running back and forth with various items in their hands, as if something big had happened. Tia couldn't help but reach out and grab one of them, intending to ask about the situation. After all, Tia was also her friend. He had just entered the palace yesterday, and such a chaotic situation happened today. Could it be related to him? "Hello, may I ask, what happened?" The palace servant who was walking quickly was grabbed by her and was slightly stunned. When he looked up, he felt that he was a little unfamiliar. Then he looked at the room she came out of, and he had a guess in his heart that it should be the distinguished guest of the prince, and he did not lie at the moment. "The prince is feeling a little unwell." After saying only this vague sentence, the maid hurriedly left and walked in another direction. Tia's heart suddenly beat for no reason. Unwell? Just because of the discomfort, would the whole palace be in a hurry? The steps to the outside of the palace stopped, and she turned to catch up with the maid just now. No, it must be wrong. Something terrible must have happened to Sepal, and she wanted to go and see. The situation in the main hall was far worse than she had imagined. The glass fell to the ground, and the spilled milk soaked a small piece of luxurious carpet. Two palace guards held a servant tightly, and the servant kept begging, "It's not me who killed His Highness. Shut up. No one has ever approached His Highness Sepal except you. If it's not you, then who else could it be?" One of the guards shouted, "His Highness has been kind to you. What on earth made you kill His Highness?" "It's really not me. I just came to deliver milk to His Highness this morning." The servant's struggling body instantly collapsed, and she was still trying to defend herself, but she probably felt that she was the most suspicious. Her voice became smaller and smaller, and her face became paler and paler. His Highness was already dead, and it was useless for her to say more. She was destined to be buried with His Highness. The young man lay silently on the bed, his chest no longer moving. Tia stared blankly at the door, with a huge sense of sadness in her heart. Is Sepal dead? Just like that? No way. No way. Everyone in the palace was busy interrogating the servant, and no one noticed that there was another woman in the corner. The guards only felt a gust of wind blowing in front of them. When they looked up again, there was already a person standing in front of the prince's bed. "Who is it?" The guard who spoke just now shouted loudly. Tia didn't know whether to answer or not at this moment. She didn't know what was going on. It seemed that her body was moving subconsciously. When she reacted, she was already here. "Is this person your accomplice?" "No. I don't have an accomplice." The servant who was pressed couldn't even speak clearly. She wanted to say that she didn't harm the prince, but when she said it, she didn't know why. It was like an indirect admission. "Don't get close to the prince." The head of the guards winked, and a guard stepped forward to pull her. The woman who came out of nowhere turned her head back, and the guard was a little shocked. What kind of expression was this? It can be seen that her eyes were very calm, but tears were crackling down, weirdly severe, crying so hard that the makeup at the corners of her eyes was black. "Miss Tia?" Why are you here? The captain of the guards was the first to come back to his senses and asked. Captain Shabaka was the one who rescued Tekaya at the flood festival, and he had a deep impression of her. She was the only one that His Highness had said he wanted to marry. But before they were even engaged, His Highness had become like this, which was really a pity. I came here with a friend. Her voice was choked with sobs and her words were intermittent. Shabaka nodded and didn't say much. The important thing now was not to reminisce about the past, but to continue interrogating the servant who looked very pitiful. Tell me, what happened after you came here this morning? I came here this morning to deliver milk to His Highness. He didn't even drink a sip of it before he collapsed with his hands on his chest. Amun-Ra, I really didn't tell a single lie. Tell me again, how did he collapse? Are there any details? Tekaya seemed to have caught something, and suddenly raised her head and asked. Her heart beat faster and faster, and a possibility came to her mind. After His Highness took the milk and didn't have time to drink it, he suddenly gasped heavily, his face was very pale, and he was sweating coldly. After a few breaths, His Highness collapsed. The servant seemed to feel that this was her last chance, and hurriedly told everything she knew. Cardiac arrest. Yes. This could be cardiac arrest. Sepal might not be dead at all. It's just that there is no time to explain now, and he must be given cardiopulmonary resuscitation immediately, so that he may still have the chance to survive. The bed was a bit soft, which was not conducive to operation. She dragged him off the bed to the ground. Sepal was so thin that he was just a bag of bones. He was much lighter than Aksha. Fortunately, he had just woken up and was only wearing a loincloth, which saved the trouble of removing clothes. Thinking about the content of CPR, she moved Sepal's jaw and raised it. She placed her hands stiffly on the middle of Sepal's chest and pressed down hard. There was some resistance when she pressed. After all, Sepal was a man with a hard sternum. It was quite difficult for him to press down 5 centimeters as the teacher said. She took a deep breath, added the weight of her whole body, and pressed down hard. Finally, she barely reached the depth. She rose and fell, using all her strength, and a layer of crystal sweat soon oozed out of her forehead. The guards around were stunned, but because of the respectful tone of the guard captain to her just now, they did not step forward to stop her. Shabaka looked at her strange behavior, endured it and walked up to her. Miss Tekaya, stop it, I know you feel bad, but His Highness has gone to eternal life. He tried to dissuade her with good intentions. In his eyes, she was just an infatuated person who refused to believe the truth, but it was wrong to do so. It was a blasphemy against the dead. If she didn't stop in time, she would be completely in trouble once more people saw her. The woman in front of him didn't listen to him. She was still crying and doing those strange actions. The makeup on her face had been completely smudged. Sepal's chest was wet, and it was hard to tell whether it was tears or sweat. Seeing that she really didn't listen to his advice, Shabaka couldn't stand it anymore and had to intervene. The petite woman let out a roar, and the momentum in it scared Shabaka, who was used to seeing the royal family's anger. Get out. I'm saving him. He will wake up. If he doesn't wake up, I will bear all the consequences. Everyone present was stunned by this shout, staring blankly at the woman who was doing useless work in their eyes. Shabaka had a complicated expression and sighed deeply. His Highness, he really met a very good person. I don't know how long it took, but a miracle seemed to have happened. Feeling the hot skin under his hand rise and fall a little, he began to breathe weakly on his own. Tekaya collapsed on the ground. The onlookers looked at this scene in disbelief, and hurried forward to lift Sepal back to the bed. Success, she succeeded, she saved Sepal from Osiris. Shabaka walked over quickly, the tall man's eyes were red, he bowed respectfully to Tekaya. Miss Tekaya, thank you for bringing His Highness Sepal back to the world. His Majesty the King will reward you, you have performed a miracle. He didn't understand what she had just done, but in his eyes, these were undoubtedly miracles. She brought a dead prince back to life. The most powerful high priest couldn't do this. A reward? Crab monologue. A flower for a cute little girl. Trojan peas. Normally a cardiac arrest lasting so long is definitely hopeless. It's a novel. Chapter 111. To the lovely readers. After a lot of thought and consideration, I finally decided to put it online. It seems too hypocritical to say more, so, I won't say much. I said I wouldn't say much but ended up saying so much. I found that I seemed to be a little stupid. This should have been posted together with a new chapter last night, but I forgot about it. I deserve to be punished. I never thought that anyone would read my article. In the long history of ancient Egypt, there was such a special boy. He was not as famous as Tutankhamun, Ramses, Thutmose III. Even his father was much greater than him. Ahmose became pharaoh at the age of 10 and unified the whole country at the age of 28. He was a rare legendary figure in Egyptian history. The reason why Amónhotep I was chosen was probably because he was really a very special existence. After his wife died when he was young, he never remarried. When he was old, he passed the throne to a trusted general. He was not keen on war, but only focused on repairing temples and building fortifications. This does not mean that he was an incompetent soft person. In the first year of his reign, he repelled the invasion of Libya, quelled the rebellion in Nubia, rectified domestic politics, and ruled ancient Egypt steadily for 21 years. He was a very capable person and was very popular with the people. So much so that many years after his death, people still made small statues of him privately and built temples for him. He was one of the few pharaohs in ancient Egypt who was worshipped as a god by the people after his death. His mummy has not been opened yet. The portrait painted on the coffin is different from the others. It is a pair of soft and warm eyes. People can tell at a glance that he must be a kind and gentle ruler. At first, I only thought of a rough fragment, and then more and more inspirations came together to make the story more and more complete. This is the first time I started writing a novel. At first, I just wanted to write down the story in my heart. I have a big imagination and often have a lot of strange associations. To be honest, my writing is not very good. Thank you for liking my imagination. I can be considered as a reader for many years and have become quite old. After reading a lot, I have a general idea of my own level. Well, there may be some content that even I am not satisfied with. So, no matter what, I am always willing to accept any voice. It was probably during the Chinese New Year. I accidentally glanced at the documentary Curse of the Pharaohs. Then I was particularly interested and wanted to write something. I searched for various boys in the 18th dynasty, and then I came up with the opening sentence. It is actually quite interesting. In my words, almost every pharaoh of the 18th dynasty can become the male protagonist of a romance novel, of course, except for the last I and Horemheb. Actually, if there is a chance, I would also like to write about Ahmose, or Ramses. Well, the Ramses here is not the well-known Ra-II, but another one, the last overlord of the New Kingdom, Ramses III of the 20th dynasty, also a very legendary pharaoh, and his death was also legendary. Maybe it's some of my little paranoia. I don't want to write about the popular ones. But I probably don't have much energy left. I found that I have a lot of ideas. I wonder if any of you still remember my story of the lukewarm corpse maker X, the angry girl. Haha, I've only written the beginning of that story and haven't filled in the gaps yet. In the future, I want to write an alternative palace novel and an online game novel. At this point, there are some discrepancies between my original idea and mine. At first, I thought I would never write again, but online novels are really a great way to show your imagination. Well, I'm a little addicted. I have already conceived these 2 texts, but that's a matter for the future. In fact, I posted this book at the beginning just to test the waters and see if it could pass the review. I never expected that it actually passed. I originally planned to write more, at least half of it, and then serialize it. But because of this mistake, I had to hurriedly embark on the road of running naked without any manuscripts. A handful of bitter tears. I am a very playful person. My pen name is actually 3 minutes. Why did it become 3 minute? That's because I couldn't type it anymore. The reason for this name is also because I have the characteristic of being hot-headed after 3 minutes. But for this, my first novel, I can say that I really tried my best, and it is also the one for which I have been passionate about the longest in history. I am being a little obedient here, but not really obedient, mainly because I am the kind of person who must let others know about my efforts. In the beginning, I just liked ancient Egypt and had a vague outline in my mind, and later I outlined the details I wanted stroke by stroke. Up to now, I can't remember how many documentaries I have watched, history lectures, professors' open classes, and reference books I looked up on the internet were vague. I bought a whole stack of them myself, and my own notes alone account for most of the book, which can be regarded as really trying my best. Including buying the Origin game. Now I can't help playing the game every day. Dingo escaped JPG in many places in this book, Ancient Egyptian names and modern names are mixed. For example, the place where the story begins, Nagn, is the ancient Egyptian name, and the modern name is Hierakonpolis, which is a Greek name. But when it comes to Abydos, Memphis, and Thebes later, these are all Greek names. Sometimes I feel confused when writing, but calling it this way is simpler and more recognizable. As for Nagn, I think it is easier to remember than writing about Hilarion Polis, so this is also a relatively big contradiction. I will not be eunuch, nor will I be perfunctory. As long as there is one person who likes my imagination, I will write this story in full. It seems that I have been talking a lot. Well, I am just such a person. I say whatever I think of, and it is quite illogical. Scratching my head, in fact, my station received short messages when I was about 10,000 words. I kept delaying for various reasons. Most of the time, I felt that I was not capable enough and there would be no good data after the release. It has been delayed until now with more than 200,000, and I have accumulated some cute babies. Although the data is still not good, I am really super satisfied because each of my babies is so cute. Grinning, after all, ancient Egypt is considered an unpopular genre, and a pharaoh who is unfamiliar to everyone is an even bigger unpopularity among unpopular genres. Generally speaking, I will be more dedicated after I become a V. Now I update about 2,000 words a day. After I become a V, it will be 2 updates a day, about 4,000 plus words. Of course, everyone has natural force majeure factors, such as laziness, procrastination. So I dare not say too absolutely. Especially someone as lazy as me. I also know that no matter whether it is a bad book that flopped on the street or a masterpiece by a great god, it will always be pirated after it is put on the shelves. I still hope that the little cuties who support me can also support this book more, support the genuine version. The chapter subscription I chose, plus some miscellaneous coupons on the platform now, should not be very expensive. Why do I feel that my words are messy and I have no clue? You should have guessed the next story. There are big problems with the life experience of our heroine Tia. Her father has an unclear attitude towards her and is very secretive about her biological mother. What is the identity of Mrs. Harriet? When the final mystery is revealed, can Tia still get what she wants and go on with Amónhotep? Can Singer, who has left, really let go of his hatred for Kemet and give up the idea of making Sinai independent? Will Alhadep, who has failed repeatedly, give up his dream of becoming a queen? What happened between Rhea and Harriet? What made Harriet, who left her hometown for love, finally turn against him? Can Amos, who is obsessed with Thutmose, fulfill his wish? Everything will be revealed one by one in the days to come. There are still important characters who have not appeared in time. You can guess finally, what I want to say most is, no matter whether we can continue to go on together from now on, the time with you has always been the warmest memory in my heart. I will not forget every baby who has dedicated his votes to me, and I will always remember every comment I have. These are my most precious treasures. I always thank every little cutie for affirming my work, and once again thank someone for liking my story. The story behind is very exciting. Let's go and watch it together. 2020-06-2911.27 I will always love you for 3 minutes. Chapter 112. Tia sat on the bed blankly. It had been 4 days since the CPR that day. Although Sepal had recovered his breathing, he had not yet fully woken up. She was not very reassured, so she had not left. The servant was cleared of suspicion and was extremely grateful to her. Now almost everyone in the palace was respectful to her. She was the benefactor of the entire palace. Sepal was unconscious, so Tia had nothing to do for the time being. When she came to chat with her, she was amazed and kept saying that you have this function. I didn't see it before. I was afraid that she would be wrong living here, but now I don't have to think about it at all. The corners of her mouth twitched. When she was taking the first aid class, she thought she would never have the opportunity to use it in the future. She only listened to half a bucket of water, but who would have thought that after traveling to ancient Egypt, she would still use it to rescue a dying person? How to describe this feeling? Watching a person slowly recover under her first aid, there is really a sense of pride and beauty. Teddy also came over once, looking at her with an inexplicable dark look, which made her a little creepy. Then there was a strange sigh, and nothing else was said. I've always wanted to ask you, what is your relationship with Sepal? Tia asked her suspiciously. He heard that when Tia was saving people, she cried like the dead was one of her relatives, and she ran over by herself. If the captain of the guards hadn't recognized her, she might have been tied up as an accomplice in the murder of the prince. Dia scratched her head helplessly. This kind of thing is really hard to say, mainly because she herself can't figure out what's going on. Okay, you don't have to think of other words to prevaricate me. I know everything. I was wrong last time. I said bad things about your father in front of you, but Rhea is really not a good person. Tia's face was more embarrassed than hers. After all, he did say bad things about other people's family members in front of others. Maybe it was because of his undisguised disgust for Rhea that she didn't dare to tell him her identity. So she went to see her father, whom she hadn't seen for a long time despite her illness that day. Thinking about it this way, it is indeed the case. Tia was a little speechless after hearing what he said, but no matter what, it was good that he made up his mind. Although it was not right, it was better than letting her make up a lie herself. Lying is the most brain-consuming thing. I heard that you are the fiancé that His Highness Sepal personally said he wanted to marry, right? Tia sat on the bed with a stiff tone, and the precious carpet was unknowingly plucked by him. Well, it was once, but my father did not approve of this marriage. They were more optimistic about Milidaman marrying him. Tia thought about the wording and explained it this way. In fact, this is the case. If Milidaman had not intervened, she might have woken up to face the situation of marriage. But it was fortunate that it was like this, otherwise she would not have had the opportunity to meet Aksha. Thinking of this, she smiled unconsciously, but the smile lasted for a moment and then faded away. He still didn't know where he was. So, do you love His Highness Sepal very much? Milidaman, he had seen her before. She was a vain and greedy woman. Was she so eager to come to Memphis because her marriage was taken away by her? She wanted to see His Highness Sepal, right? Tia couldn't say it, because she knew that even if she denied it, it would not be credible. In the days after boarding the ship, she lost control when mentioning Sepal, and even she herself felt it was abnormal. How could she let others believe that she really didn't have any other intentions towards Sepal? T smiled silently, and her face was gray for a moment. In his eyes, her performance undoubtedly admitted everything. She knew it in her heart, and Busiri knew it too, so she told him that if she needed it, he should find a way to bring her to the Memphis palace. It turned out that it was all because of this. He was the only one who didn't know. It was ridiculous that he had some unrealistic and ethereal feelings because of these days of getting along, but it turned out that he was overthinking. The largest courtyard in Memphis. Which other courtyard would be bigger than the Memphis palace? She wanted to come, but maybe she just didn't want to come with him. She had already lost before it even started. After T left, the servant who was pardoned that day ran in, panting and looking very anxious. Miss Tia. His Highness has woken up, and he asked me to summon you. Oh, okay, I'll be there right away. Hearing that Sepal had woken up, Tia was stunned and adjusted her skirt. She was still a little nervous. After all, she had never seen Sepal in person. Could what she saw in a dream count? The main hall was filled with smoke. The young man sat upright on a gold-plated chair with a perfect smile on his face. Did you save me? The young man's clear voice came over. Dia raised her head and looked at him. She was in a hurry to rescue him before and didn't look carefully. With just one glance, she was stunned. The young man on the chair was far from the dream. He was no longer the Prince Charming that all the girls in Kemet were obsessed with. He still looked very weak. It was a bit difficult for him to just keep his back straight. He was so thin that he looked like a skeleton. There was not much meat on his body. His beautiful eyebrows and eyes had sunken deeply because of his excessive thinness. His slightly upturned lips were no longer full. They were dry and shriveled with a layer of dry skin. It might be because of his bad heart. It was a strange purple red. The once strong body exposed outside had now become like the loose skin of an octogenarian. She covered her mouth in horror, covering the cry that was about to come out. How long has it been since the flood festival? It has only been 4 months. Why? Why did he become so sick? He is such a perfect person. Should his fate be broken here? Is it strange? Am I really that ugly? Looking at the crying girl in front of him, Sepal curled the corners of his lips and said jokingly, "No, you are still the most perfect man in the world." Tia sobbed and said, and the words she said shocked her. It's not her who is speaking. Here it comes again. The feeling of being out of control is back, just like returning to the dream of those days. She can only watch and listen quietly like a bystander, But she can't control her body on her own. That person uses the same voice as her, but the words he speaks are different, and the tone is very low. If it's not her who is speaking, then who is it? Who can control this body freely? Is there any need to think about him? What else is there that she can't figure out? The things that happened in the past few days flashed through her mind like a revolving lantern. She smiled bitterly in her heart. What else could she be dissatisfied with? She was the one who had taken over the body. The one who was speaking now was the real owner of this body, the daughter of Rhea and Horus, the real Gaia. Your Highness, no matter what you become, I will still accompany you until I can't accompany you anymore. Sepal smiled gently, with some relief in his eyes. Gaia, go away. You are still young. Forget me and find someone who loves you. You will love each other and go through this life hand in hand. A person's life is too long. To you, I am just a passing guest for a moment, but I can't delay your life. The voice couldn't help but burst into tears. He still remembered her and never forgot her existence, but he himself was about to die. What could be more sad than this? No, I will find a way to save you. You will definitely survive. Don't waste your time on me. All the top doctors in the country have come to see me. They don't have any solution. What can you do? He said too much? He couldn't hold on for a few breaths. The servant beside him quickly brought a bowl of dark medicine. He took it and drank it without pause. Without even a frown, Sepal leaned weakly on the chair and took a breath. As long as people live in this world, no one can escape the fate of death. I am a royal family, but I am no different from ordinary people. But Osiris, he will love me, and my death will not be something too difficult to accept. Death is not terrible. It is just the beginning of another journey. You and I are both devout believers of the gods, and we should understand this truth better. Hey. There is a comment on my main site? Why was there no notification? Comment +1. I am so happy. Flowers and tickets for the crab babies. I've been playing Origin recently to find inspiration, but I didn't find much inspiration. I was so addicted to the game that I didn't make any drafts in 2 days. The image quality is really good. I'm sliding on the pyramids and visiting the pharaoh's palace. Sepal is really a very gentle and good prince. As I was writing, I couldn't bear to let him die, but there was no way. Just like he said, it was fate. Fate wanted him to go to eternal life early. Degrees. Chapter 113. She has always been there. His voice was low and gentle, with a soothing tone, but Gaia could not stop crying in despair. No. It's not like that. Osiris would not be so eager to see you. You haven't taken the position you should have, you haven't started a family, and there are so many things you haven't done. How can you just accept it? You are only 21 years old. Tears poured out like a flood, and she shouted out of control, it shouldn't be like this. He is only 21 years old. It is the best period of his life. How can God take him away like this? This is not fair. People who have done all kinds of evil things are still alive and well in the world, but good people like Sepal have to leave early. If there really is a God, if God really has compassion, why would he arrange such a tragic fate for him? It is better not to believe in such a God. Yes, I am only 21 years old. I have enjoyed everything that can be enjoyed in this world. I own the most beautiful alabaster, countless gems and gold. I have been to the waterfalls in Nubia and rode across the plains of the land of the 2 rivers. I personally cut off the evil hands of the Hyksos and brought a stable life to the people in the north. Sepal paused for a moment to breathe, but the light in his eyes became brighter and brighter. I have accomplished so much. The life I have lived has been very perfect. That position is irrelevant to me. As long as the person who sits on it can be as diligent and caring as I am, and consolidate the lost and recovered territory, I will not feel regretful. And my dear brother, I believe he can do it and will do better. He still smiled as if bathed in the spring breeze, and his eyes looking at her were unreservedly frank. Every word he said came from the heart, and he was not afraid of death. She opened her mouth and wanted to say something, but felt that she had nothing to say. What to say? He was a well-deserved hero and had made all preparations. The young man on the chair suddenly changed his expression. His sunken eyes were red, and the back of his hand that was tightly grasping the armrest was covered with blue blood vessels. This was a symptom of the disease, but the servants around him seemed to be used to it. They were not panicked at all and went forward to massage his forehead and other parts of his body to reduce his pain. She rubbed her feet on the ground, feeling anxious, but she didn't go forward in the end. She knew that going forward now would only cause trouble. Sepal has always had good qualities. Even though the pain tortured him like this, he didn't cry out. After a long time, he seemed to have lost his strength and collapsed. Sweat oozed from his forehead and soon wet it. Is it scary? The voice was hoarse and full of fatigue. Malaria had almost consumed him, but the first thing he thought about was whether he had scared others. I may not be able to continue today. I will come to see you after I have rested well. Sepal shook his hand tiredly, but he did not even have the strength to speak. The servant sent her out the door with great foresight. When she reached the corner of the door and could no longer see Sepal, Titia felt her body relax and the control of her body belonged to her again. The servant was walking in front of her and talking about something, but she could not hear it clearly. Her mind was in a mess and her eyes were blank. The original owner was still there, so what was she? Was she really an evil ghost who took over people's bodies? What was Aksha looking for? What future? Did she still have a future? But she did not do it on purpose. She did not want to cross over here. How did things turn out like this? What should she do? What should she do next? The door of the Albizia wood was closed tightly behind her. She slid down slowly against the door panel. In the place where the sun could not reach, her face was even paler than Sepal. Are you still there? After a long while, she spoke softly. Her voice was almost inaudible. Yes, I am. Her soft lips opened again, but a completely different tone came out. The pale fingertips pinched into her palm, causing a slight pain. She paused, not knowing what to say for a moment. If someone came in now, they would find the scene strange and eerie. Behind the dark door sat a woman whose face could not be seen. She talked to herself in two tones, asking and answering herself, or raising her eyebrows and laughing, or lowering her eyes and sighing. Don't you have anything to ask? It was the original owner who spoke first, breaking the heavy silence. No. She shook her head dully. My name is Lin Ya. I come from a very far future. I didn't mean to occupy your body, and I don't know why I came here. She lowered her head and explained carefully that if possible, she would like to return her body to Titia, which was originally hers. You don't need to explain. You and I coexist as one. I know everything you've been through. The deep voice sounded again, and he laughed softly a few times. You don't need to feel too much psychological burden. I understand what you're thinking. You are me. How could that be? How could I be you? You still exist, but I am a wandering soul occupying your body. The corners of his mouth that were raised drooped again. When did you wake up? It's not about waking up. When you woke up, I became conscious. Then you. Why didn't you show up? Why did you let me wander the world with your body? And let me have feelings with others? And then show up at this moment to tell her that everything she had was an illusion? It's not what you think. You think too much? The voice was light. You are not the wandering soul, I am. It sounds ridiculous, doesn't it? I am the dead soul who stays in the world, but I watch my own body live the life I dreamed of before, with friends, partners, lovers, people who miss me, and it is worth missing. Actually, I should thank you. You let me see a different me and let me know that I can live in another way. I don't have much, and my father seems to be gone. My original thoughts were very simple. I just wanted to get rid of this kind of life one day in the future. Just like you dreamed, His Highness Sepal is indeed the most precious and greatest illusion in my life, just like you to Amónhotep. I should have gone to eternal life a long time ago, but I was unwilling to see Sirka and my little men get the punishment they deserve, and I was unwilling to not complete the marriage contract with His Highness Sepal, so my resentment bound me in my body. But this is fate, I have to obey. Fate wants me to die, and fate also wants you to come. The original owner's tone was calm and soothing, gradually calming her uneasy heart. What about the future? What should I do in the future? Realizing that there was something wrong with what she said, she hastily changed her words. I don't mean to kick you out, I just... She was confused about the future of the twins. There is no future. If you save him, I will leave, and this body will belong to you completely. What? Question mark. Is this what she understood? Titia wants her to save Sepal? I can't. She shook her head and sighed. This is an impossible task. The best doctors in the kingdom can't save him, so how can she save him? You can do it. You saved him once a few days ago, didn't you? The voice that had been calm all the time suddenly became sharp and echoed in the empty room. It's not like that. The treatment we received a few days ago is different from what you ask for now. Feeling her heart beating wildly, she scratched her hair, trying to think of the wording. I just made his heart beat again that time, but his fundamental illness is not this. How can I cure malaria? Aren't you from the future? You can definitely save him. In modern times, this disease is indeed not fatal, but it's not like I'm from modern times and can cure him. Treating this disease requires advanced synthetic drugs and sophisticated instruments, and there are none here, she tried to explain to Tia, but the other party seemed to be unable to listen to anything, as if she was possessed, repeating the sentence no over and over again. This chapter killed a lot of my brain cells. I was stuck for 2 days. After thinking for a long time, I decided to give her back the name that belonged to the original owner. Although she is a character created by me, I can't let her feel so wrong that she can't even have her own name and can only call her the original owner. Oh, I always feel that writing like this is a lot more confusing. In the final analysis, it is because of my lack of writing skills. Chapter 114, Mist. I told you they wouldn't agree to my going to take care of Sapple. Why do you insist on me going? Lin Ya whispered to herself. The soup in her hand had already gone cold. She had just been politely rejected by the palace maid. In fact, she had been rejected many times, thinking that this tonic soup would not be able to enter Sapple's mouth. She raised her head and drank it all. This was duck soup that had been stewed overnight. It was very nourishing. It would be a pity to pour it out. It would be a waste not to drink it. As expected, the original owner who shared the same body with her did not speak. She shook the remaining soup in the jar twice. After Tia's short-lived appearance that day, she rarely appeared again, mostly in her dreams to give her some instructions, and her face in the dream was not very good. She looked exactly like what she said a wandering soul should look like, pale, green, and weak. No matter how Lin Ya explained and persuaded her that day, she was convinced that Lin Ya did not want to save Sapple at all, fearing that Sapple's recovery would affect her and Amónhotep's relationship. She was so stubborn that Lin Ya could not argue with her. In the end, she simply said to Lin Ya, if you can't cure His Highness Sapple and let him die, then I promise that on the day he dies, my body will be damaged, and you can't use it to stay with your lover forever. This sentence was so paranoid that it gave people a headache. What could Lin Ya do? She could only choose to bite the bullet and agree to her. Lin Ya also knew that she came from the future and might not really die with the death of her body. She might even return to the modern world. But as Defies said, she might be able to leave, but she would never see that person again, never see that noble boy again, and never tell her love again. Saving Sapple was an impossible task, but she wanted to give it a try, even if it could extend his life a little longer. Then there might be a chance to see Aksha again, even just once. Otherwise, if she just went back like this or really died, she would definitely be as unwilling as Tia. It was still early, and she kicked the gravel under her feet twice out of boredom. Anyway, Sapple would not see her, so why not go out and look for Aksha first? What if Sapple could not hold on for that long? Then she would have no chance. It is always better to do this kind of thing early than late. Thinking of this, she became anxious and didn't want to wait any longer. That? His Highness Sapple doesn't want to see me, so I'll go out for a walk first. She asked quietly in a low voice, but still no one answered her. If you don't say anything, I'll take it as your consent. She asked again to herself. Very good, no movement. It was convenient to enter and exit the palace, and the guards at the door still remembered her, Lord Tiai's important friend. But the current situation is different from the past. His Highness Sapple is seriously ill, and the situation in Memphis is not stable. Although she is unlikely to pass on any news that should not be passed on, it is still necessary to send someone to go with her for safety reasons. Miss Tia, let's go. The person escorting her was the chief guard Shabaka, a tall and strong man, and he was very steady in his speech. The word Miss Tia made her stunned, and she couldn't help feeling bitter. She was still Tia a few days ago, but now they are two independent individuals. But this is as it should be. She was not the real Tia. Lin Ya didn't have much impression of him, but in the rescue 2 days ago, it can be seen that Shabaka knew her, or rather, knew the original owner. Seeing her puzzled look, Shabaka spoke with understanding. You may not remember me, my name is Shabaka. I rescued you from the water at the flood festival in Memphis. When he said that, Lin Ya understood. No wonder she didn't remember that there was such a person as him. When he rescued Tia was already dead. Of course, she had never seen his face. And she woke up several days later, so she didn't know who he was. Is that so? I haven't said thank you to you yet. You took so much effort to save me to the shore. When I woke up, it was already many days later. You can just call me Tikaya, don't be so polite. Thank you, Shabaka, God will bless you. Thank you should be thanked. Whether he was out of pure kindness or something else, Shabaka was always the lifesaver of this body. Although the person he saved was actually dead. Okay, Tikaya, let's go. Shabaka was more cheerful than she thought. After hearing what she said, he followed suit. He paused for a moment and turned back to ask her, where are we going? Oh, Lin Ya scratched her hair awkwardly. She didn't know where to go either. Shabaka, do you know where the largest house in the city is? Shabaka was stunned. House? Is it a house or a manor? Is there a difference? Of course there is. A house is a courtyard, while a manor is much larger. Shabaka smiled and explained patiently. Is that so? Lin Ya lowered her eyes and thought. Aksha's family was so well off, and he could take so much gold at will. He should live in a manor, right? Manor, she said uncertainly. Well, a manor. The largest manor in Memphis belongs to a wealthy businessman in the country. What do you want to do with him? Shabaka thought about it based on her clues, and then answered. Rich businessman? That might be true. Lin Ya nodded hurriedly. Take me there, take me there. Shabaka agreed with a smile. Miss Tikaya was really like a child. She was good-looking and had a good temper. It was just a pity. His eyes darkened. It was a pity that His Highness would not live long. In his opinion, these two people were so well matched. This was probably fate. The location of the manor was a bit remote, and the road to it was also bumpy. Fortunately, Lin Ya always had the habit of wearing shoes when going out, so this road was not so difficult to endure. On the other hand, Shabaka, with a pair of bare feet, saw the gravel and soil on the ground without hiding, and stepped directly over it. His expression was very calm, and his brows did not frown, as if the road under his feet was no different from that in the city. Hey, Shabaka? Aren't your feet hurting? Shabaka smiled when he heard it, and raised one of his feet to her. A thick layer of calluses grew on the sole of his foot, covering the entire sole of his foot. Of course, it would not hurt for such a pair of feet to walk on such a road. I used to be a soldier of the kingdom, and I have fought in many places with the army. This kind of road is already very good. In the valleys of Sinai, many sections of the road are only gravel, without this layer of calluses. You will bleed after stepping on it for a few steps. Soldier? Lin Ya looked at this foot, but in her heart she felt as if she had seen such a pair of feet somewhere else, also covered with calluses, and also not afraid of this kind of pain. When the weather was getting hotter and hotter, a cool shade of palm trees appeared in front of them, growing in clusters at an angle on the top of the wall. The top of the wall was not very high, only up to the level of Lin Ya's neck. She could see the scene inside without lifting her feet. Inside was a fertile land, planted with grapes and barley, and groups of servants were busy working inside, either transporting goods or pulling weeds on the edge of the field. One of the people leaning against the wall noticed someone outside the wall. She looked over in confusion and then walked forward a few steps. You? You are not from this manor, what are you doing here? When someone came over, Lin Ya smiled and asked her question naturally. Hello, I am from the city. What is the name of the master here? The servant looked at her warily and stepped back. Shabaka spoke up. This manor belongs to the wealthy merchant Amónhotep. Amónhotep. Lin Ya shouted excitedly. Yes, this name is good. Aksha is indeed called Amónhotep. He also gave himself a name called Amónhotep. Yes, my master is called this name. What are you doing here? The servant asked suspiciously. Excuse me, is he in the manor now? No, the master went to Mendej downstream. Then when will he come back? The excitement just now turned into depression, and Lin Ya asked unwillingly. I don't know, he may be back soon, or he may come back in a few months. The servant said truthfully. This answer made Lin Ya feel a little melancholy. A few months. Would she still be there when he came back? But what if, as the servant said, he came back in a few days? Thinking of this, she perked up again. She looked into the servant's eyes and paused for a word. If he comes back, please ask him to come to Memphis Palace to find me. My name is Tikaya, and I have something very important to tell him. Chapter 115 Bearded Apo. The servant said yes in a daze. Lin Ya was still a little worried, so she kept talking to him for a long time, and only stopped when she was sure that he would not forget. In fact, when Lin Ya introduced herself, she wanted to use the name Amónhotep. In this way, Aksha would be very happy if he knew it. But when she thought of what Helf said at the beginning, everyone in Kemet knew the meaning of this sentence, she still felt a little shy and did not say it out loud. The person was found, and the worries were gone. Lin Ya felt a little relieved on the way back. Memphis is much larger than Nakan. Because it is close to the delta and has convenient transportation, there are endless new things in the market. Lin Ya was in a good mood. While walking around, she turned back to chat with Shabaka. The conversation came to this point. Shabaka was a little confused. Don't you live in Thebes? Isn't Lord Rhea an official of Thebes? Why did you run to Nakan? This. Lin Ya knew that she had said something wrong. After thinking about it, she felt that it was nothing. Rhea might have informed Sepal about his decision to replace her with Militiman. Otherwise, it would be too disrespectful to a crown prince. Besides, even if Sepal didn't know, it was Rhea, Militiman, and Circle who offended him. It had nothing to do with her. If they were really unlucky, maybe Tia would be happier? They were not good people in the first place. Well, maybe you know Militiman. She turned back and asked Shabaka. Shabaka was stunned for a moment, not understanding why she suddenly asked this question, but he had an impression of Militiman, Miss Tia's half-sister, who was not very outstanding in appearance and had some physical defects. But for some reason, when he looked at the greedy woman, he always felt that she was similar to someone he had met before, but he couldn't remember who it was exactly. I have seen her, your sister. Rhea may think that His Highness Sepal and I are not so suitable, but Militiman is very suitable. Lin Ya said after a pause. She said this with some bad intentions, but it was also true. Militiman? With His Highness Sepal? Shabaka frowned. This matter was indeed unheard of in Memphis. How dare Rhea be so bold? Dare to replace the bride personally selected by His Highness Sepal on his own initiative? What's wrong? Shabaka suddenly stood in front of her and covered her tightly. She couldn't help but feel a little confused. Nothing, someone has been watching you. He said vigilantly. Someone is always watching me? Lin Ya instinctively felt something was wrong. She poked her head out from behind Shabaka and looked around. There was no familiar person either. Where is he? The bearded man in front. Shabaka pointed. Bearded man? Didn't see him? She looked in the direction Shabaka pointed, and she really saw a bearded man standing in the middle of the road. He didn't look like a stalker. Are you sure he's looking at me? I'm sure. As the chief guard, Shabaka's perception was very sharp. He couldn't have made a mistake. He didn't tell Lin Ya that this man had followed them for a while, from the city square to the center of the market. Are you sure? Lin Ya was a little confused. She didn't know this bearded man. But from the look in his eyes, he was really looking at her. The man was wearing a thin linen robe, with a dark brown beard covering his face. His appearance was not very clear. One could only vaguely see that his nose was very high, his eye sockets were slightly sunken, his skin was a dark chocolate color, his hair was very thick and long, with a little curl. It was obvious that it was real hair, tied up at the back of his head, and judging by his outline, he should be very young, with a tall and straight figure. He stood there, saying nothing, and his appearance was also very ordinary, but for some reason, just looking at him, I felt that this man had an indescribable aura, as if he looked down on the world. Seeing that he had been discovered, he smiled slightly and took the initiative to walk over. The aura on his body gradually dissipated as he got closer, and turned into a kind atmosphere. The person had already walked in front of her. Lin Ya looked up and looked at him carefully. He was no longer young. He looked to be about 40 years old. His skin was a little loose and there were fine lines at the end of his eyes. He just didn't look old at all. His eyes were much more energetic than those of young people, and his eyes were bright. She had indeed never seen such a person. Maybe the original owner had seen him before? But she didn't take it seriously because it was not important? She called Dia several times in her heart, but still got no response. It was really hard to find her every time she took the initiative. Lin Ya was a little confused. In fact, she could vaguely guess that Dia's recent situation might be like what she said before. She was really dead, and what was left was a trace of undead. She must have consumed a lot of energy and had some bad effects on her when she rushed out to see Sepal that day. So the genius has been so weak these days that he didn't even have the strength to come out and answer a word, and could only harass Lin Ya in his dreams. I'm sorry. I just thought this lady looked a bit like an old friend of mine, so I looked at her a few more times and disturbed you." The middle-aged man was very humble and frank. He apologized before Lin Ya and the others could speak. His eyes fell on her without any concealment. The emotions in his eyes were a bit complicated, like some nostalgia, but not entirely nostalgia. Old friend? Lin Ya frowned and thought about it. What old friend could look so similar to her? Could it be that he was deliberately trying to get close to her? Suddenly thinking of a possibility, her heart jumped. She remembered Mrs. Harriet, who was on the sickbed. Could the old friend mentioned by the bearded uncle be Harriet? In fact, in her opinion, the appearance of this body was not very similar to Harriet, mainly because Harriet was so thin at that time that he had lost his appearance and could not see the appearance of his prime. Instead, his skin that was as white as frost and snow was inherited intact. Seeing that Lin Ya had no intention of speaking, the bearded man did not show any other expression, but turned to ask Shabaka beside her, "Is this young man a soldier?" The bearded man smiled kindly. Shabaka frowned, and instinctively touched the scimitar at his waist. "Don't be nervous, God Amon, I was also a soldier, I just feel a little familiar." He smiled and stretched out his hand, touched Shabaka's hand unceremoniously, and pressed back the unsheathed knife. "My name is Abo, I'm a businessman, and I'm glad to meet you." The bearded middle-aged man who called himself Abo spread his palm and made a handshake gesture, but the situation was a bit awkward now, and no one paid attention to him. One hand was alone blowing hot air between the three people. "Abo? Apophis?" Shabaka raised his eyelids and asked casually. The smile on Abo's face was stiff for a moment. He took his hand back, and touched his nose. "No, Apo, just Apo. I can't bear the name of Apophis. Apophis is the name of two Hyksos monarchs, one of whom was the one who provoked King Theo and eventually caused his tragic death. This name once made the Kemet people turn pale, but now it has become a rat crossing the street, and everyone wants to kill it." "Oh? Then there is some connection, right?" Shabaka grinned and misinterpreted maliciously. "Is it because you have a past with the evil majesty Apophis of Hyksos, so you took such a name? Evil, Apophis." Even in the face of such clear targeting, the bearded man did not turn hostile, but only took a step back and stopped talking. Shabaka smiled and pulled Lin Ya. "Let's go. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels." Chapter 116 Hyksos. They had walked a long way, and the bearded Apo knew not to follow them. Lin Ya slowly slowed down her pace. "What happened to you just now?" She could see that Shabaka was very disgusted with the bearded Apo, so much so that he started to speak harshly to him. But she couldn't understand. The Apo didn't say anything unfriendly, did he? And he even greeted her on his own initiative, looking very kind. "Are you asking why he spoke like that?" Shabaka stopped and said seriously, "He is a foreigner, a dirty foreigner." Foreigner. The Apo looked a little different from the Kemet people, so he must be a foreigner. But foreigners shouldn't speak so harshly, right? "Well, I suspect he is a foreigner from the east," Shabaka said in a deep voice. "East? East of Kemet, probably West Asians?" Calculating this time period, that is ancient Babylon? Is the bearded Apo actually a Babylonian? How did Shabaka tell? The words rolled around in her mouth, and finally she swallowed them. Shabaka was no one else but a soldier of the kingdom, and they were not very familiar with each other. Her habit of asking questions over and over again made even the thick-skinned T feel that something was wrong. Forget it. Just bear with it. Curiosity kills the cat. Aksha also saw at a glance that the Cesis couple were Nubians, relying on their black skin. What about Apo? Is there anything special about him that is different from others? Can people tell where he is from at a glance? Miss Tia, if you meet him again in the future, please don't have too much contact with him. Question mark? Why is that? Although she didn't plan to have any intersection with the strange bearded man, wouldn't it be very strange for Shabaka to say that? How did he know that the bearded man would definitely come to find him? There are so many similar people in the world. Maybe one day Apo will meet someone who looks more like his old friend? Lin Ya looked at him with confusion, but Shabaka didn't explain anything. Perhaps because of the intense gaze, Shabaka turned his head helplessly. Miss Tia, You just need to know that the honest Shabaka will not harm you. If that person really gets involved with you, it will bring you endless disasters. His expression was extremely serious, so Lin Ya agreed first, but she was still somewhat confused in her heart. Okay, we have been out for a long time, it's time to go back. After experiencing all these things, Shabaka obviously didn't want to accompany her to hang out anymore. He looked a little anxious, as if there was something urgent waiting for him to deal with. He was so anxious that Lin Ya nodded obediently. Shopping or something, it's the same no matter when you go out, business is more important. Shabaka sent Lin Ya back to the tower gate and stopped moving forward. He sent a guard to lead the way for her. He had other things to deal with now. Lin Ya expressed her understanding and declined his kindness. She had already come here, and she would not get lost no matter how bad she was at directions. Besides, there were many palace servants coming and going in the palace, so there was no need to bother. The main road inside the tower gate was paved with flat stone slabs, and a soft carpet was placed on top. The long carpet extended all the way up to the top of the steps. She walked along the carpet and climbed the steps, sniffing the air and feeling a little dizzy. There were all kinds of things on both sides of the road: red pomegranates, yellow acacias, purple water lilies, white lilies, and many other flowers that could not be named, but no matter what, they could not cover the heavy smell of spices. Incense was burning everywhere in the palace, such as the long carpet under her feet. Every few steps, a small burning lamp was placed on the left and right. This situation is very common, but it is not common now. There are two most common high-grade spices in Kemet, namely myrrh and frankincense. They are used as the main ingredients, and then matched with some other balsams. Among them, the smell of myrrh is dark and heavy, which makes people feel drowsy, while frankincense is just the opposite. Given this property of myrrh, it has become a universal analgesic. Because Sapal suffered from malaria, most of the spices in the palace were replaced with myrrh-based ingredients. He felt pain relief from the smell, but it was hard to say for ordinary people. For example, Lin Ya felt uncomfortable smelling it now. She had almost stayed up all night to stew soup for Sapal, and had been out walking all day. Now she smelled this smell all the way, and she felt a little confused and started to shiver while walking. I am so sleepy, why is this road so long? Looking at the shallow lotus ponds on both sides of the road, she paused, walked over, scooped up a handful of water with her hands, and patted her forehead, which was not so clear. But it seemed to have no effect. The water had been exposed to the sun for a whole afternoon and had become warm. It made her even more sleepy when it hit her face. The sun was so bright that she couldn't open her eyes. Before she couldn't control herself and fell down to catch up on her sleep, she found a good place for herself. It was impossible to lie down casually, not in this life. There was a large platform up the steps. In the middle of the platform was a tall statue of the king. His Majesty was only wearing a traditional loincloth. A palace maid had put a fresh emerald feather wreath around his neck. He was leaning against a huge flower bed, with his left foot forward, looking arrogant and majestic. This was not important. What was important was that the statue was large enough. There was a large space on the base behind it, so it was easy to hide a sleeping person. The room was still a long way from here, and she really couldn't hold on any longer. Lin Ya walked over with a shaky look, looked around and saw that there was no one around, and wiped the base a few times. The base was not dirty to begin with. Every day, a palace maid came to wipe it so that His Majesty would be clean and radiant every day. After cleaning up, she lay down directly. Not to mention, this base was now more comfortable than the bed in the room. The black granite was blocked by the flowers, and the sun could not shine here. Only a little light could shine through the leaves. The temperature of the entire base was suitable, both warm and cool, so Lin Ya fell asleep completely after she leaned against the edge. Shabaka was writing a letter in the mobilization room. The sunlight came through the straw mat in the window and divided the paper into several parts. Shabaka frowned, looked at the words under his pen, paused, and then quickly crumpled it into a ball and threw it into the burning brazier. He took out a new roll of papyrus from the box, spread it carefully, and then rewrote it and changed some of the content. Send this to Tanis and give it to His Highness Amónhotep. The guard beside him responded and ran out quickly with a papyrus roll. Shabaka breathed a sigh of relief and sat down heavily on the floor. His Highness Sepal had a serious headache, and he should not be disturbed by such troublesome things. His Highness Amónhotep was inspecting the barracks in Tanis at the moment. He would receive a reply to the instructions in the next 2 days. Before that, he would do his best to send people to monitor the foreigner from West Asia. Thinking of the content he had just deleted, he sighed. Miss Tigaya has a clean family background, and her father is the Minister of Finance who is highly valued by His Majesty Amos. The foreigner must have made a mistake, and there should be no special connection between the two of them. With His Majesty Amónhotep's rigorous character, if he knew that such a suspicious thing had happened, it would definitely have a bad impact on Miss Tigaya. What he just deleted was the process of meeting the foreigner. Speaking of this foreigner, he is really special. There are many foreigners who do business with Kemet, but none of them can make people so afraid. With this appearance, this momentum, that Apo, does not look like an ordinary West Asian, but more like the Hyksos who were expelled a few years ago. I can't wait, even I am beginning to miss my male protagonist. Chapter 117 Friends. When I woke up, the sun was about to set. Rose-colored clouds filled the sky, covering everything on the ground with a crimson halo. I slept very comfortably, and I felt much more energetic when I woke up. It might be because the myrrh was too strong and I slept too soundly. Surprisingly, I didn't see Tigaya in my dream. It was just that the base used as a bedboard was a little too hard, and my body was a little stiff when I slept. I stretched lazily and loosened the muscles in my back. I propped myself up and sat up, feeling something was wrong. Why is there a small bald patch in the garden behind the king? To be precise, the circle surrounding Lin Ya was bald. The lush vegetation was uprooted, leaving only a bare piece of black soil. There were also a few small spice pots, burning, and ethereal smoke floating above them. No wonder I smelled such a strong fragrance when I woke up. I thought it was the incense burned by others to worship the king, but it turned out to be right next to me. What is this for? If such a large piece of flowers and plants is uprooted, won't the statue of the king be ugly? Lin Ya scratched her head in confusion. Something was wrong. She felt like she had missed something. Her hand that was scratching her head suddenly stopped, and she realized belatedly that someone had found her sleeping behind the statue? Question mark? Oh my god. Who is so wicked? Pulled all the flowers out. Question mark. She can't sleep here, so why not just wake her up? How big of a grudge? And it made her more conspicuous. Could it be that what she did was damaging the king's dignity? It wouldn't be illegal. No one cared just now, so it shouldn't be illegal. However, this is really embarrassing. She stood up and patted the wrinkles on her body. A gust of wind blew over her sweat-soaked clothes, and they stuck to her body and felt cold. She walked out from behind the statue, pretending to pass by as if nothing had happened, and walked onto the central platform. She was about to slip back to her room when no one was watching, but she was stopped by someone. Miss Tigaya. Lin Ya's back stiffened, and she slowly turned her head, praying silently in her heart. She didn't see that she came out from behind the king. Hello. Lin Ya nodded and smiled. Are you awake? Click, it was the sound of someone's jaw dropping. How did she know? Could it be that she was the one who weeded? Lin Ya's shocked look was too straightforward, and the maid covered her mouth and smiled secretly. Miss Tigaya, did you not sleep well yesterday? You slept for the whole afternoon. The lingering sound, one afternoon. Did she see herself sleeping for the whole afternoon? How come all the flowers are plucked? They don't look as good as before after being plucked. Lin Ya touched her nose awkwardly twice and asked. In fact, she wanted to ask more. Did you pluck them? Why did you pluck them? But it didn't seem good to ask like that, as if she was accusing someone, so she thought about it and changed the way of asking. You're asking this? The maid put down the sweeping tools in her hands, took a few steps closer, and looked quite gossipy. I heard that you were His Highness Saple's fiancé. No, I'm not. Lin Ya waved her hands quickly. She used to be, but not now. The maid didn't listen to her explanation, and looked like she understood everything. God Puta, His Highness Saple is so good to you. Today, His Highness came out to bask in the sun and found that you were sleeping behind the statue of His Majesty the King. This is against the rules, but he saw that you were sleeping so soundly that he couldn't bear to wake you up. He was also afraid that mosquitoes, snakes, ants, etc. would run out of the bushes and disturb you, so he asked us to remove the flowers and plants quietly and burn insect-repellent spices for you. The maid looked at her cheeks that were slightly red because of embarrassment, and said to herself with a smile, But it turned out to be like this? Was it because Sapel was afraid that she would be scared, so he made this arrangement? He was quite considerate. The central platform could no longer stay there. The maid looked at her with that familiar aunt smile, just like she was in modern times and was pairing up with her roommate. And this look was not entirely like that, there was also some regret. There was no need to guess what she was regretting. It was indeed quite regrettable that one of the pair was about to die. But understanding was one thing, and it was another thing to do it yourself. Who wouldn't get scared if they looked at her like this every day? Not to mention that she had no other thoughts about Sepal at all. If there was any, it was the original owner. She only liked Aksha, okay. Lin Ya fled in panic under such a look. Passing the maid who was pairing up, she walked to one side of the platform. On both sides of the central platform were a section of ascending stairs, connecting two small platforms. A fence was built on top of it with high-quality wood, and the top was sealed. It looked like a small shed, with gauze wrapped around it and covered with unknown vines. A carpet was laid in the middle of the platform for people to rest at any time. It was very cool. After climbing about 10 to 20 meters in one breath, Lin Ya didn't know which step she took wrongly, and she got a stitch in the side. She held her chest and leaned against the shelf. Someone walked past a flower stand. She looked up and saw a corner of a bright yellow shirt through the diamond-shaped wooden frame covered by branches and leaves. There was no need to think about anything else. It must be Tia who was dressed so gorgeously. She opened her mouth and instinctively wanted to call him, but swallowed it back. I don't know why he wouldn't talk to her recently when they met. His face was cold and he wouldn't pay attention even if he deliberately approached her. He was much colder than when they first met. Although I don't know why, if others don't want to pay attention to you, you'd better not go and make trouble. Tia also noticed her under the flower stand, and he took back his steps and walked in from the corner. He looked in good condition. He was no longer the poor giant on the boat, and his face was a little rounder. What's going on? Tia spoke unnaturally, his tone was stiff and dry. That was enough. I didn't want to care about her at first, but seeing her look so uncomfortable, I couldn't help but come over to check. Was this a test from the god Amon? Cough. Tia's face became a little nervous as she started coughing. It's only been a few days since we last met. Are you sick? I heard that some malaria is contagious. Did she get too close to His Highness Sepal? Was she infected? I know you like him, but can't you take care of yourself? He's a patient, why do you always stay close to him? Aren't you afraid of being infected? If you are really infected, even if Amónhotep is reborn, he can't save you. Amónhotep is a very effective god of medicine. The difference between him and other gods is that he really existed. He was the vizier of the ancient kingdom. He helped King Djoser build the first stepped mausoleum and invented many prescriptions and exorcism spells. In the north, people's faith in him is higher than that of the son of the god Amon, the god of medicine, Khonsu. T said this, but he didn't move his feet, nor did he show a look of disgust. Instead, he scolded her. No, I was just walking too fast. She took a deep breath, the pain in her chest had almost dissipated, she grinned and smiled at T. T was startled, glared at her angrily, and turned to leave. Damn it, why bother with her? He shouldn't have bothered with her. The corner of his clothes was grabbed by someone, he turned around and pulled it back unhappily. Let go. No. Don't be angry, okay. Lin Ya looked up and smiled flatteringly. T was her only friend in Memphis, it didn't matter why he got angry with her, she would just accept it no matter what it was. And T was not really angry with her, otherwise he would not care about her at all. Sepal didn't know how many days were left, if that day really came, according to Tia's threat, she would disappear. She didn't want to be angry with her friend for the rest of her life. Chapter 118 Wood Chopping. According to you, you didn't come to Memphis for His Highness Sepal. T's anger had almost subsided. Lin Ya pulled him to sit on the carpet and began to discuss what had happened in the past few days. Well, no, I came to find my fiancé, Amónhotep, who is doing business in Memphis. Under the flower stand was a set of wooden chopsticks that someone had put there. It might have been hidden by a servant for entertainment when no one was around. Lin Ya took it out and threw it to play. The way to play was very simple, just like an ancient version of dice, looking at the points. Just throwing it casually into the sky, the wooden chopsticks fell down in all directions. Lin Ya curled her lips. Well, 3 round surfaces, 1 flat surface, and 1 dot. This luck is really good. Then why do you get so excited every time you mention Sapal? Tu frowned, ignoring the uncomfortable feeling in her heart when she mentioned her fiancé, but she was not so angry anymore. After all, she did not mean to deceive him, and it was not that she was unwilling to go with him. This was enough. Well, His Highness Sapal is a very good person. The secret of soul transformation cannot be told. She squinted her eyes and began to make excuses. Well, he is very good. So what? Tu was unmoved. Don't you think it's a pity that such a good person died like this? You think it's a pity like you've gone crazy, making a fuss every day and crying at every turn. Tu felt puzzled, and the expression on her face was so wonderful. What else? Lin Ya tilted her head to look at him, tossing a wood axe in her hand boredly. Prince Sapal enjoys a high reputation in the kingdom. When the prince passes away in the future, I'm afraid that all the girls in the kingdom will be in endless grief. This is somewhat reasonable. It makes sense. Sapal is indeed very popular in the country, and many girls are attracted to him. The wooden chop fell to the ground, with 2 round faces, 2 flat faces, and 2 points. Tu couldn't stand it anymore, so he reached out to take it and tossed it in his palm. I'm talking to you, you're stupid, but you have such bad luck. The wooden chop flew and fell to the ground, with 4 round faces and 6 points. Tu raised his eyebrows. With your luck, if you put it in the Thebes casino, you won't have a single grain of wheat left when you come out. Lin Ya was speechless, snatched it and tossed it again, still 1. She was puzzled. Why did the coin always get smaller when she threw it? You said you came to Memphis to find your fiancé, so how come he didn't know you were coming? Didn't you send him a letter before you came? No, I came here on my own spur of the moment. Tu frowned. A girl, running all alone from Naken to Memphis, the danger involved cannot be ignored. Is her fiancé so good that he let her run to Memphis fearlessly? She dressed up in a mess on the first day. Not only would the bad guys not put away their thoughts, but they would think she was stupid and easy to fool, just like herself. You don't know where he is? Busiri told you to find the biggest mansion. Lin Ya nodded. Then, have you found him? Just because he didn't talk to her these days doesn't mean he didn't pay attention to her whereabouts. The fact that she left the palace with a chief guard, Shabaka, today did not escape his eyes. It's a bit funny to think about it. He was angry and blamed her, but he was still worried. Found him. He lives in a manor outside the city, but he is not here now. I heard from his servants that he went on a long journey to Mendez downstream. That man was no longer in Memphis and had gone to Mendez. She felt a little aggrieved and confused. She came all the way here for him, but he disappeared. There was also a problem here. If he didn't come back, would he never see her again? Tu paused and frowned. What's wrong? Seeing his expression, Lin Ya couldn't help asking. Nothing. Tu said lightly, but she was still a little confused in her heart. Has the person been found? In fact, he thought that if she didn't find him, then he should have some clues. That Amónhotep lived in a manor outside the city? No matter how he thought about it, it didn't seem right. Her words combined with the letter Busiri gave him made him believe that the man was in the Memphis palace. But now that the person has been found, he will just think that he was wrong. The light faded, the night fell, and the black veil was shrouded. The maid came into the room with a fire, lit the oil lamps one by one, and then left. There were really few entertainment facilities in ancient times, especially for Lin Ya, who was still unable to sleep. The passage of time was even more unbearable. She asked the maid for a set of wooden chopsticks, and the maid sent it to her as soon as she asked, along with a set of Sine chess. The chess pieces made of ivory were warm, and there were exquisite patterns carved on them, in the shape of a lion and a jackal. She took a look at it and threw it back. She didn't know how to play this thing yet, but it seemed that it could only be played by 2 people. She was alone, and this was not a way to kill time. Thinking of the dice she had thrown during the day, she picked up the wooden chopstick unconvincedly. She didn't believe that her luck was really that bad. She threw it 20 times in a row, most of which were 1 point, and only a few times, at most, she only threw 3 points. She threw the wooden chopstick in a rage. The Kemet people love the wooden chop that comes with a Sine chess. People can be seen playing it in the streets and alleys. People say that it represents a person's luck. Some people even say that it is very effective to use it to predict what is in your mind. She fell on the carpet in frustration, with a thoughtful look in her eyes. What are she asking? From the afternoon until just now, She only asked one question: can she see Aksha this time? When can she see him? No matter how many questions she asked or how many times she threw the dice, it was always 1 point over and over again, and Tie threw it casually and it was 6 points. Is this a manifestation of fate? If not, why is it always the same bad result? Something fell out of her eyes, but she didn't even raise her hand to wipe it. She was in a very bad mood. She never believed in such things. When she was in school, her best friend had a crush on a boy in the next class. She liked him but didn't dare to confess. She was a nervous person every day. She could cut a night study session with a piece of plasticine. While cutting, she kept muttering, "He likes me, he doesn't like me." If the bell rang and it was "he likes me," she would be happy for a long time. Otherwise, she would be sad instantly and had to cut out another one until she liked it. Lin Ya once thought her friend was a little stupid for believing in such unreliable things. But now it was her turn. She felt terrible. More than 20 denials shattered her wish to see Aksha before returning to the modern era. She missed him so much. As the days passed, she was afraid that she would even forget what he looked like. She wanted to see him, hug him, and kiss him like in the dream. But how long would it take? When he came back from Mendez and heard the message she left for him, and then came to the palace to find her, would he only hear the news of her death? She didn't want to die. Even if she died, she could return to the modern world and see her family whom she hadn't seen for a long time. But she really didn't want to die, and she didn't want to go back. She couldn't bear to leave Aksha. Really, she couldn't bear to leave him. Chapter 119 Sine. After sleeping too much during the day, she couldn't fall asleep at night. Lin Ya lay on the bed, tossing and turning, wanting to sleep but unable to. The sky was pale, and a little light was lit in the room. She finally fell into deep sleep. When she stepped into the light blue water, she knew that she had entered Didaya's world again. The first time she saw Didaya in her dream, she was sitting cross-legged in the water, and the water didn't reach her waist. The first few times she saw Didaya, she had already felt that the water in Didaya's world was getting deeper and deeper. This time, it was up to her chest. She just sat in the water, neither changing her position nor standing up, letting the water soak her, without moving. Is he better? She opened her eyes, tilted her head and looked over, her face pale. The water under her feet looked really deep, and Lin Ya still couldn't put her feet down, so she found a place on the steps by the water to sit down. How can it be so fast? Do you think I'm a god? Besides, don't you know everything? I haven't seen him at all these days. This world is not all water, there are also some plants, some papyrus by the water, and a few purple water lilies in the middle. It's really boring to talk dryly, so Lin Ya just broke a piece of papyrus, repeatedly tore it into strips. Didaya didn't say anything and closed her eyes again. Lin Ya looked at her face and carefully considered the words. Didaya, have you ever thought about whether His Highness Sapal wants to live? She said this, not entirely out of selfishness. Although she hadn't seen Sapal these days, she had chatted very closely with the medical officers who served him on weekdays. As students of Busari, they were not shy about her and always said whatever they wanted. Although His Highness Sapal's disease cannot be cured, there are several special methods that can make him live longer. But no matter which one, it is impossible to cure it, and the pain he should experience will not be reduced at all. She didn't know how sick Sapal was, but judging from the frequency of summoning medical officers, the situation was not optimistic. To live, this word is easy to say, but does Sapal really want to live? Every day and night, he is tortured by headaches that penetrate deep into his bones. If it were her, and she had to choose, she would rather die than live like this. Just treat him, don't worry about anything else. Didaya raised her eyelids and said in a cold voice, of course he wants to live. He hasn't become king yet, and he hasn't married and had children yet. How could he not want to live? But, this is all you think. Maybe these are not important at all in Sapal's eyes. Isn't it a bit too selfish for you too? Lin Ya frowned and said, Didaya only wants Sapal to live, but if she sees how miserable Sapal is every day, will she still do this? Sometimes, death is the real relief. Before she finished her words, she was interrupted by Didaya's cold voice. She looked at Lin Ya, the ice in her eyes almost condensed into a knife. Enough. Remember, only if he is alive, you can live. Lin Ya was frightened by her fierce look, and she reacted and silently stopped talking, concentrating on folding the sedge in her hand. Did you play wood chopping today? Perhaps knowing that she had scared the other party, Dia slowed down her tone and asked. "Yeah, I played, but my luck was not very good." Lin Ya curled her lips and answered her in a muffled voice, thinking to herself, she really looked like someone who slapped someone in the face and gave him a sweet date. Is this what she did after scaring someone? Where are the dates? Can you play Sine? Dia seemed not to notice the dissatisfaction in her tone, and raised her eyebrows. No, we don't play this there. Can you play chess? She only knows Go Bang. Does this count? But Dia, can she play Sine? It seems that I have never seen her play in my memory. Lin Ya also raised her eyebrows in response. The two of them had the same face. If one of them was not sitting in the water and the other was sitting by the water, it would really look like they were looking in the mirror. I know how to play. Do you want to play another game? Dia looked up at her, with a complex look in her eyes that she couldn't understand. Before she nodded in agreement, Dia raised her hand and waved it in the air. A circle of ripples appeared on the light blue water surface, and she almost teleported to Lin Ya. A large water lily leaf floated on the water, and a set of Sine chess was placed on it at some point. That? I don't know how to play this. Lin Ya didn't expect that she would really play it as soon as she said it, and she felt a little numb in her hands. This looks very difficult. Dia explained the rules of Sine chess in detail. After listening to it all, in Lin Ya's opinion, this is actually a bit like modern flying chess. Two people each hold a chess piece, white and black, representing the lion and the jackal, 5 pieces each. There are 30 squares on the chessboard. You need to put your own chess pieces in the first 10 boxes. The rest is to throw the wood. The two people take turns to throw. The first person to throw a point goes first. The number of points you throw can jump a few steps, but if you throw 2 or 3, you have to give the wood to the other person after jumping, and it is the other person's turn to throw. When you throw a square where the opponent's chess piece is already, it is considered to have captured the opponent, and the two chess pieces exchange positions. When two chess pieces of the same type are connected, they cannot be exchanged. After all your chess pieces have reached the last 10 squares, you can move them out of the chessboard one by one, and the first one to move out wins. Only when the number you throw reaches the 30th square can you move it out, otherwise you have to start over with the extra steps. In this process, you can move all your chess pieces at will, without having to follow the order of placement. It can be said that playing this game depends not only on luck, but also on your own calculation ability. If I lose later, don't laugh at me. Okay. As expected, Lin Ya was the first to throw a point. She picked up the wooden chop and looked at Dia with a pout. She felt that if it was her, she would definitely lose. After all, she had been defeated miserably during the day. No. Dia didn't look up, but her voice was surprisingly serious. However, the result this time was surprisingly unexpected. Lin Ya threw 20 times, and 20 consecutive times were 4 points and 6 points, and only once threw a point. All the lions went to the last 10 squares, and even one had successfully escaped from the chessboard. Lin Ya felt incredible. Oh my god, is her luck so good? Why didn't it work like this during the day? She was so excited that she didn't see the face of Dia opposite her. Her face was as dark as water, and her lips were tightly pursed. She was too excited, and her hand trembled. The 21st time, it was a 3-point, but this move also made another lion escape from the chessboard. It's your turn, it's your turn. Dia picked up the wooden chop and gently rubbed it in her hand a few times. The wood chop flew and fell, 2 points. A jackal finally walked out of the grid, 2 steps. Her eyes flickered a few times, her hands trembled so much that she let go too quickly, and the wood chop fell on the lotus leaf with a thud, splashing water. The rest of the chess game was incredibly smooth, and the 3 lions escaped from the chessboard one after another. The lucky ones didn't even step on the X square representing the return to the origin. This game was really won beautifully. In the whole game, the jackal only moved once. Come again. Lin Ya shouted excitedly, quickly collecting the remaining pieces on the chessboard and rearranging them. No, that's enough. Dia was not interested, and twisted the black chess piece in her hand with a faint sound. A chess piece turned into powder in her slender fingers. Even if Lin Ya was a thick-skinned person, she felt that something was wrong. Dia's expression was terribly gloomy, and there was no smile on her face. The light in her eyes was up and down, like the prelude to a storm. She looked really scary. Lin Ya put down the chess piece in her hand hesitantly. I think I should wake up, so I'll leave first. The original owner's mood was really changeable. It was just a loss of a game of chess, so what? Facing this situation, the most important thing is to run away immediately, otherwise you might get hurt. Upon hearing this, Tidai just waved her hand, and all the scenes disappeared in an instant. There was no one on the opposite side of the lotus leaf, and she picked up another chess piece. Is this the arrangement of fate? She murmured to herself. Only she knew that this game of chess was not a pastime, but a divination. She asked Osiris about the longevity of His Highness Sepal. The ending is very clear. Fate, fate Osiris, the master of gods and men, the king of kings, is it really your wish? Taking him away, like taking away a gentle north wind? Chapter 120 Tanis Chronicles. I'm so angry. Babur, that old bastard. The heavy military tent was lifted up, and Thutmose strode in, sat down on the carpet and panted. The boy who was studying the topographic map did not look back, he looked up in surprise. Your Highness, he doesn't respect your arrangement, aren't you angry? As expected. The boy turned his head and said lightly, the sun shining on his face favored by the gods, as perfect as the finest pearls and jade. Babur, the guard general of Tanis, is an ambitious guy. Usually, under the huge pressure of Sepal, he dared not act rashly even if he had ideas in his mind, and obeyed obediently. But the situation is different now. Sepal has stopped caring about things and sent a young boy who knows nothing to supervise the army. He wants to take this opportunity to make some money for himself. Now he can stand firm and let His Royal Highness suffer a setback. Then his soldiers will know who is more capable and who can lead them to victory. Even if Amónhotep becomes king in the future, he still has a place in Tanis. Now there is a group of scattered soldiers from nowhere who are restless, with thousands of people. Amónhotep intends to actively respond and send troops to encircle and suppress them. However, Babur holds the opposite opinion. He thinks that these scattered soldiers are just a group of ants. It doesn't matter when they are eliminated. The most important thing is that he doesn't want to listen to Amónhotep obediently. If the other side really wins the battle, won't it increase his arrogance in Tanis? He kept delaying the dispatch of troops. This time he simply said to Thutmose, His Highness Amónhotep has just arrived in Tanis. What does he know? I am more familiar with this territory. Thutmose was furious, but there was no other way. Just as Babur said, Amónhotep had just set foot in Tanis, and the only force he could rely on was the one belonging to Thutmose. However, Thutmose was not stationed in Tanis for a long time. His main defense area was Memphis, and the troops here were not many, and could not be compared with Babur. Using this little force to encircle and suppress the group of scattered soldiers was almost like hitting a rock with an egg. Babur, this old man, relies on his long military service and doesn't take your highness seriously. He is so stupid. He doesn't even think about what will happen to him when you become king. Thutmose was angry and cursed. It's no wonder he was angry. Babur really treated Amónhotep like a child. The so-called important documents sent on weekdays were all trivial matters. What soldiers felt that their salaries were not high enough and asked for a raise, the quenching water for making weapons had been used for too long and needed to be replaced, the grain in the granary was too full, and the grain from the previous year had not been eaten up. Should we replace it with another batch? When Thutmose asked, Babur still looked as if it was a matter of course. Not the Punisher, everything I do is for the good of His Highness Amónhotep. I am just letting him understand the daily life of Tanis's military camp at a more basic level. If you really want His Highness to understand Tanis, you should let all your troops go. Thutmose was so angry that he threw all the important documents on Babur's face, but his expression did not change at all. He said lightly, a leader who cannot understand the needs of grassroots soldiers is not a good leader. He blocked Thutmose's question. Well, there is nothing to say now. If he continues to talk, it will seem that His Highness does not care about the grassroots soldiers. Thutmose returned in defeat. Your Highness, the documents sent by General Babur. The attendant lifted the military tent and walked in carefully with 2 rolls of papyrus in his hands. Put it down. Amónhotep said indifferently. Before he could take it to read, Thutmose rushed up and grabbed a scroll. I want to see what Babur's soldiers need today. The seal on the papyrus scroll was torn open, and the handwriting inside was revealed. Thutmose was happy and laughed out of anger. Your Highness, look at what he said. He pointed at the characters on it, one by one, with such force that the poor papyrus was about to be punctured. Today's supplier is not very honest. The meat delivered is not fresh, and some soldiers have stomach problems. Dishonest? I think it's you, Babur, who is dishonest. Amónhotep took the crumpled straw paper, spread it out carefully and gently, and wrote a reply with red paint: send guards to criticize the supplier, investigate other merchants in the city, and choose the best meat to replace. Your Highness, can you tolerate this? Looking at the calm expression of the young man, he wrote a dispensable reply seriously. This kind of thing, everyone knows how to do it, and Babur would only bother His Highness with such a trivial matter. What made Thutmose even more angry was that His Highness was not only not angry, but also really responded seriously as a matter, often busy with such trivial matters until late at night. There is nothing I can't tolerate. He dares to send it like this, of course I have to reply well. Amónhotep's answer was calm, but Thutmose couldn't hold his temper. Then how long do we have to endure it? Are we going to waste time with Babur like this? There are other military camps in the north to inspect. If he succeeds this time, tastes the sweetness, and spreads it, what will the next military camp do? If this goes on, will His Highness still have any prestige in the north? Your Highness. The scattered soldiers are attacking. The garrison outside the city has been invaded. The military tent was lifted up again, and Thutmose's personal guards ran in. It can be seen that they ran in a hurry and were out of breath. Tell me slowly, how did Babur act? Amónhotep looked up at him, and his tone was not anxious. General Babur did nothing, just asked the defense to expel them, and did not allow pursuit. The guard thought for a while and reported truthfully. Okay, I know, you go down. Amónhotep said indifferently. The guard was a little dazed. Your Highness. Isn't he angry? Shouldn't he go to Babur to make it clear? But seeing that neither his general nor His Highness said anything, he responded in a daze and turned to go out. The guard's figure disappeared behind the military tent. Thutmose looked back at Amónhotep, thinking, Your Highness? What do you want? He knew in his heart that the opportunity His Highness had been waiting for had come. Amónhotep smiled and nodded slightly. The two friends looked at each other, and everything was self-evident. This kind of thing worked once, but what about twice or three times? The scattered soldiers were not punished for their invasion once. They tasted the sweetness and would go for the second and third times, and their appetite would be gradually raised. One day, simple invasions would no longer satisfy them, and bigger incidents would arise. In the current situation, a man with blood in the kingdom would not be willing to endure it. When Babur issued a few more similar orders, his prestige in the Tanis military camp would almost disappear. At that time, as long as Amónhotep gave an order and implemented the right policy, all the soldiers would gather under his wings, become his feathers, and add a bit of strength to him. Although this would also damage the strength of the kingdom, it would be better not to have soldiers who were not loyal to him. He tapped a few times on the table with his fingers and picked up another papyrus roll from the tray. The seal was not printed with Babur's emblem, but from Memphis. Amónhotep raised his eyebrows, somewhat surprised. Memphis had his brother in charge, so what big thing had happened? Could the garrison send a letter to him directly without his brother? The papyrus rolled up in his hand, and Amónhotep's brows furrowed tighter and tighter. What's wrong, Your Highness? Thutmose came over and asked. Your Highness had never shown such an expression since he came to Tanis. He looked at the seal removed from the table, and his heart tightened. It was Memphis. Something happened in Memphis? What did the letter say? He asked anxiously. Thutmose had been following Sefer for quite a while. If something happened in Memphis, then what about Your Highness Sefer? It was a letter from Shabaka, the captain of the guards of the Memphis palace. He said that a man suspected to be a Hyksos was found in the city. I miss His Majesty Amónhotep too. Chapter 121 Encounter. On this day, the sky was full of rosy clouds. Lin Ya met Sapel, who was praying in front of the king's statue on the central platform. The flowers that had been moved away before have been planted back, colorful and bright. His face was still pale, probably because of his body. He was very afraid of cold. In such a hot afternoon, he wore a thick tunic. His weak body could not support so many heavy ornaments. He only wore a thin scarab amulet around his neck and a blue belt around his waist. The wind blew over and lifted his wide clothes, making him look even more empty. He was so thin that even his bones could be seen. His eyelashes trembled in the sun, and his thin face showed some peaceful years. For some reason, Lin Ya looked at his profile, but she thought of Aksha. She suddenly felt that the two people were somewhat similar, but she couldn't remember where they were similar. But Sapel was a prince and Aksha was a businessman. How could they be similar? It might be a coincidence. She shook her head and threw away some unrealistic thoughts in her mind. She also felt a little funny in her heart. She hadn't seen Aksha for too long, so she felt that Prince Sapal looked similar. Not long after reciting the prayer, he couldn't hold on any longer. His body swayed a few times. A servant came to support him and handed him a bowl of black medicine. After drinking the bowl of medicine, his face looked much better. He forced himself to stay energetic and continued to recite. But after a while, his spirit collapsed again. His hands trembled a few times, but he still couldn't strike a spark. The flint for tinder rolled to the ground. He leaned over and reached out to pick it up. Lin Ya couldn't bear it anymore, so she walked over a few steps and picked it up before him. Where? Is it that one? She pointed to the spice cup on the ground. Sapal looked at her, and after a brief surprise, he regained his calm and nodded. She squatted down, and the flints collided with each other, making a few harsh noises and sparks. She took it close to the spice cup and lit the fire outside. The fire burned and retreated, and finally ignited the charcoal fire under the spice in the cup. The smell of spices rose, drawing a winding mist line in the air. Lin Ya held her nose. This smell? It seems that there is more frankincense in the ingredients today. After lighting the spices, she took the golden plate beside her, grabbed a handful of fresh petals from it, and scattered them around the incense. This is a ritual. Although I don't know what it means, I have seen priests do this when I was studying in the temple of Horus. I think this is what Sepal will do next. After all, the gods of Kemet are roughly the same. The king is a living god, so he should be like this. It seems that she did it right. This should be the last step after praying, because Sepal's body has softened and no longer struggles to maintain the posture just now. He turned around and smiled at her, his voice just right for gratitude. Thank you. Lin Ya pursed her lips and nodded as a response. In fact, she blamed herself for doing so in vain. After all, even if she didn't go forward, there would always be servants to do it. But seeing how hard he was struggling, and remembering how he was in high spirits on the boat during the flood festival, she couldn't bear it. He was a prince, and a prince who was once glorious and bright. How could he have come to this point? The servants came up in a mess, helped him up and put him on the recliner. His body could not maintain stability on the sliding chair now. The luxurious gold-plated recliner was covered with thick cushions, and he sank into it when he laid down. He didn't lift it far, and walked to the pergola on the small platform at the rise, and the servants put the recliner down again. Sepal sat down on the carpet leaning against the cushions, and the sunset fell on him through the heavy leaves, adding a warm temperament to the skinny young man. Thank you for your previous arrangement for me, Your Highness Sepal. Sepal is a very good person, worthy of her humility. If Tia and he are still fine, maybe some romantic stories will really happen, but there is no if in this world. Lin Ya followed him and bowed to him. Her falling hair covered the regretful look in her eyes. When she raised her head, the look had been put away by her. This is a proud person. Even if he has fallen to this point, he would not expect others to pity him, she thought. I was just passing by and it was just a convenience. Sepal smiled slightly. In his opinion, there was no need to thank him for such things. Insects and snakes like shade. If she was left alone, she might be in danger. Are you feeling better? After saying this, she almost wanted to slap herself in the face. Isn't this typical of making small talk and rubbing salt into people's wounds? With his face and his state, he doesn't look like he is in good health. It's not good, nor is it bad. It's just that it's been like this for a long time, which really makes me uncomfortable. Sepal said lightly, but Lin Ya really wanted to roll her eyes when she heard it. You are like this, and anyone with a discerning eye can see it. Are you just uncomfortable? The servants brought various dried fruit snacks for entertainment and poured him a glass of wine. Sepal picked it up and just raised it to his lips, but the mouth of the glass was covered by a hand. He raised his head and looked over in confusion. The girl who stopped him had a face of forbearance, as if she wanted to say something. What's wrong? He remembered her. This was the concubine he chose for himself, but before he had time to get engaged, he was already terminally ill. Love? Like? Not much, really. When he made this engagement, he just wanted to prevent her from being embarrassed when she woke up. This decision was too impulsive, even he himself found it incredible. But at the time of the incident, he saw her desperate and stubborn eyes in the water, which touched his heart for no reason, and even promised to support Rhea in order to marry her. He thought that maybe she liked him, That's why she looked at him so passionately that night. For a moment, he thought that after marrying her, he should treat her well, erase all the suffering she had suffered, and give her the sweetness of honey in the future. But with his serious illness, all this became a thing of the past. Now that he is about to die, how can he remain indifferent to such a person who treats him well without asking for anything in return? When he saw her sleeping face behind the statue that day, he should have dragged her out and dragged her back to her room. Behind the king's back was not a place for people to sleep. But seeing how sweetly she slept, he still couldn't bear it and made such an absurd decision. Is this perhaps what others call a good impression? But it came too slowly and too late. You are not in good health, don't drink. His hand was not very strong, and he didn't hold it that tightly. Lin Ya easily pulled the wine glass out of his hand. For the Kemet people, drinking is not called drinking, it is just a kind of beverage. But now Sapal is seriously ill, drinking is harmful to health, this is not in vain, he should quit drinking. Sapal looked at his empty hand and shook it loosely, but the doctor said I can drink. This voice was small, his eyebrows drooped, and his expression looked a little aggrieved. Lin Ya didn't know what to say for a moment. Why is this doctor so incompetent? Who said that I can drink? Alcohol is irritating, no matter what disease it is, I shouldn't drink it? Thinking of the situation when Sapal fell ill before, them in the palace, and looking at the wine glass in her hand, she seemed to understand something. Sapal's drinking is indeed not drinking, and the doctor who spoke is not an incompetent doctor. He is incurable, using alcohol to numb the nerve pain. A sour feeling surged in my heart. As a rational person, he should not drink this glass of wine anyway, but looking at his gradually frowning brows, she hesitated. He is in so much pain, is it really necessary to watch him in pain? Give it to him, give it to him. When he is drunk, he won't feel any pain and can sleep peacefully. But according to the agreement between her and Tia, letting him go will undoubtedly accelerate his death. You drink it. After struggling for a long time, she decided to hand the glass back. People who are in extreme pain finally want nothing more than a shot of euthanasia, but Sapal can't even choose a comfortable way to die. In such a life, as long as there is no pain, what else is there to consider doing? I really hope that one day I will have enough manuscripts saved and I will be so arrogant as to say that I will update more. Can procrastinators have spring? Chapter 122, Onset of Disease. The glass of wine was not drunk in the end. Sapal took it and gently put it on the ground, saying only softly, "You say no, then don't drink it." But he also fell ill afterwards. The pain came like a tidal wave, and this time, it seemed to be much more serious than the last time Lin Ya saw it. The bloodshot in his eyes almost burst, and the veins on his forehead throbbed. He curled up on the carpet in pain, holding his head with both hands, like a cooked shrimp. A strong man like him, who was rumored to be in the chaos of the army and suffered multiple injuries, still continued to fight without changing his face. At this moment, he was extremely fragile, and a few barely detectable cries of pain escaped from the corners of his lips. This scene happened in a flash. Before Lin Ya could react, he had already fallen to the ground. Compared with her panic, the servants could be said to be well trained. While they asked people to carry Sapal back to the room, they separated their hands to find a medical officer. The moment the recliner passed by her, her body stiffened instantly, and her heartbeat, which did not belong to her, began to beat wildly. She heard the words clearly. Sapal said, "Please have mercy on me, Anubis, please take me away, great Osiris." He was really living a hard life, and he really didn't want to continue living like this. She stretched out her hand and grabbed the servant who was running at the end. "How long has your highness been like this?" When she saw him some time ago, although the attack was painful, it was not as painful as it is now, so painful that he made a sound. "Your highness has been like this for a long time. Since the last time he pretended to die, it has become more and more frequent, and the pain has become more and more intense." The servants were not in a hurry when she grabbed them, they were used to this scene. "God Osiris, please have mercy on poor His Highness Sapal, he is really having a hard time." The hand that was clenched dropped, and she followed the servant all the way to Sapal's living room. Thick incense had long been burning inside and outside the palace, and priests would enter from time to time. Soon, the sound of fork bells shaking and various spells to exorcise diseases could be heard. The medical officer who entered first came out, and the attendants of Sapal surrounded him, asking about Sapal's condition. The medical officer frowned and shook his head. "Now the ordinary treatment methods are useless. We have carried out the last set of treatment plans for His Highness. If it doesn't work this time, we can only rely on the will of Osiris." The attendant's faces suddenly turned pale. Lin Ya's sixth sense told her that this plan might not be an ordinary plan. The last treatment plan? What is that plan? She looked at the medical officer, her tone a little anxious. Bloodletting. The medical officer did not speak, but the attendant next to him answered her. Bloodletting. Lin Ya screamed and ran quickly into the room. "No, this is absolutely not possible. He is so weak, and he will die if he bleeds. How dare they? How dare they do this?" She didn't know how to cure malaria, but she knew that the essence of malaria was the presence of malarial parasites in the blood. His body might already be full of worm eggs. How could they bleed him? In ancient times when there were no anthelmintics, even if he was dried up, he would not be able to recover. They did this to kill him. "Miss Tia! Miss Tia!" The attendants called out loudly, wanting her to come back, but they didn't dare to do too much. Thinking of how she miraculously revived Sepal who had lost his breath, a little hope gradually rose in their hearts. Maybe Miss Tia has found a way to save His Highness? Her medical skills are so superb, she will definitely be able to do it this time. Praise you, great Imhotep. You are the immortal god. Diseases are eliminated because of you. Countless people cheer for you. Please raise the sacred scepter in your hand. Drive it away. Drive this disease out of this young man's body. Heal him. Just like healing your dearest child. The priests sang and danced around Sepal's bed in the temple, and the shaking fork bells made bursts of harsh noises. They praised Imhotep, the god of medicine, loudly. After several repetitions, it didn't work, so they retreated one by one and replaced by another wave of priests. They devoutly carried in a golden statue and placed it at the head of Sepal's bed. Then they started to dance in a frenzy, and the fork bells rang even more loudly. Praise you, Khonsu, the omnipotent god of medicine. The medical officer was already in place, holding Sepal's hand on the bedside, and used a flint knife roasted by fire to cut open his blue veins that were particularly obvious because of his thinness. Dark red blood gushed out from the wound on his wrist, flowing down his fingertips and dripping into the bowl prepared by the medical officer. The man on the bed still had no sign of relaxation. He covered his head with his hands and cried out in pain. The medical officer shook his head and wrapped his hands with clean linen. He then tentatively gestured to his legs. Enough. She rushed forward and blocked the medical officer's hand that was about to cut open his skin. Miss Tia. The medical officer looked up and was a little puzzled. What was she going to do? You can't bleed anymore. His body can't bear it if you continue like this. She spoke quickly and knocked the flint knife away with one hand. Miss Tia, you are also a student of Master Busiri. You should understand this. The medical officer frowned, not understanding why she suddenly came out. But does your bloodletting therapy work? Lin Ya paused, looking at the bowl of blood that had been drained from Sepal, and a breath of blood surged up and choked her throat. They really dare to bleed? And so much? Aren't they afraid of killing the person directly? Or, in history, has there been patients with malaria who have been saved by this method? The medical officer's tongue was tied. It is true that no one has ever recovered after bloodletting, but this method was also taught by his teacher Busiri. Busiri's medical skills are recognized by the entire kingdom. Are you using a medical plan that has not been put into practice for His Highness? This sentence was a bit aggressive, and she regretted it as soon as she said it. These medical officers did not mean it. They had no other choice, and they had a good relationship with each other. She was really too much to say that. I'm sorry. I was just anxious for a moment. I know you are all sincere for the good of your highness. I said the wrong thing. Please don't take it to heart. The medical officer nodded, sighed, stepped back, and said nothing more. He also knew in his heart that the other party was talking without thinking and didn't care too much. But in this situation, are there any other treatment options? Maybe, you can try to press his head with external force to relieve the pain. Like modern massage, although it can't be cured, it can at least relieve the pain. The two medical officers looked at each other, thought it feasible, and stepped forward to gently press Sepal's temple. This trick worked wonders, and after only a while, Sepal fell asleep. The people in the hall slowly retreated, and the medical officers breathed a sigh of relief. Taking advantage of the opportunity to leave, they discussed with Lin Ya about the measures she had recently used to treat Sepal. Lin Ya was speechless for a moment, and could only shirk the blame on Busiri. Anyway, They all knew that she was Busiri's student. Busiri was a skilled doctor, so it would be nice to have a few more praises. The medical officers left satisfied with the answer, and she walked back to her room with a lot on her mind. She needed to talk to Dia. She really didn't understand medicine, and she couldn't save Sepal. Dia could do whatever she wanted. I went out to hang out again during the day. I'll post the remaining update later. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelists. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 123 Alive. As she expected, the water level in the dream rose a lot. Only Tia's head was above the water, and the rest was buried under the water. Did you see everything that happened today? Do you still insist on what you think? Lin Ya stretched out her hand and brushed the water's surface, causing ripples. The water in the dream must be Tia's inner fear, from the flood at the Memphis Flood Festival. The more she feared, the higher the water level rose. It had been so long since she arrived, and the water in Tia's dream had not changed. She only came from Nakan City to Memphis, to Sepal's side, and heard the news that he was seriously ill. Has it developed like this in just a few days? As she said, Sepal's everything to her, so she doesn't care about her own life or death, but only about Sepal's. She is now a dead soul. What will happen if the water covers her head? Will she lose the qualification to go to the afterlife as others say? Thinking of this, Lin Ya asked. She looked at Tia's calm face on the water, thinking. Yet, Tia's face was still very calm, as if losing the afterlife was not a terrible thing. Lin Ya originally thought that she would threaten her again after she said this, but she didn't. Losing the afterlife, and being a lonely soul wandering in the reed marshes forever, this punishment is too much. If you want to retreat this flood, there is only one way, that is, to let it go completely, either cure Sepal and let her go with peace of mind, or let her learn to accept the existing reality and stop being obsessed. And the first point is obviously not feasible. Did you hear what the doctor said today? He said that Sepal's condition was getting worse and worse, and his headaches were getting more and more frequent. He said, I hope Osiris will have mercy on this poor prince. Dia nodded silently, and the shadows on the water surface fluctuated, shaking the calmness on her face. You saw his attack today, didn't you? He's in a lot of pain. This sentence may have worked. The water around Tia began to rise and fall, and she could see her arms shaking underwater. Tears slid down her cheeks and suddenly fell into the water, a small splash on the surface of the water. The tears and the water merged into one, indistinguishable from each other. Why? Why are the gods so unfair? Why? Why does a good person like him have to accept such a fate? He should be the eternally sovereign Horus. He should be the master of this black land. Sinful as Circa, she did so many bad things but she's still fine, Mott. Why did the gods take him away? She finally burst into tears, her voice hoarse, and she screamed. This voice was too sad, and Lin Ya's eyes gradually became wet when she heard it. Whether it was the gentle Sepal or the gloomy Tia, they were essentially very good people. If this was fate, it was too unfair. She didn't know how to comfort Tia. She had lost too much. Sepal was the only one she cared about, but now he was like a candle in the wind, and would soon run out of oil. After a long time, she cried enough, stood up from the water, and waded over. The wet dress stuck to her body, showing her beautiful figure. The slightly curved chestnut hair was stretched straight by the gravity of the water, and gracefully stuck to her naked back. The slightly curly hair dripped down with water drops, like a water demon crawling out of the water. She scooped up water and walked to the shore step by step. Her slightly red eyes curved, and she tried hard to force a smile. I want to accompany him for the last part of the journey, can I? This question was asked humbly and bitterly. Lin Ya's heart moved, and she reached out and put her arm around her shoulders. She didn't need to say that at all, this body belonged to her. Her body exuded a cold breath, without temperature. Lin Ya put her chin on her shoulder and nodded heavily. Mott will punish Circa and Melitaman, she will. If Mott does not punish them, then I will punish them for you personally, I promise. There was a hot liquid dripping on Lin Ya's neck, and her usually cold voice brought some warmth. Thank you, Lin Ya. It was still a bit difficult to say this name in Kemet's language. Lin Ya read it as Li Ya, and she laughed as she spoke. If I had met you earlier, No, if we didn't meet in this way, if you were also born in Kemet, that would be great, then maybe I wouldn't be so lonely. The flood in the dream quickly receded, revealing flat land, and then large tracts of green unknown vegetation grew. Tia stood in the green and smiled, stunningly beautiful. After waking up, Sepal sat up from the bed and rubbed his sore forehead. Looking at the dry lines on his palms, he slightly raised the corners of his lips. Once upon a time, he was also young and frivolous. On the day when he defeated Sheraton, his grandmother personally put on the medal of the Golden Fly of Courage for him. She touched his head, held his hand, and took him to see the people under the high platform. She said that he was like his father, the great Amos, and one day he would become the king of this land. The living Horus must be brave, love his people, and bring joy and happiness to his people. That year, his father announced that he was the regent prince and sent him to take charge of the entire north. Year after year, he did it and fulfilled all the expectations of his grandmother and father. He was brave and loved his people. The civilians in the north had joy and happiness because of him. But is this enough? A serious illness at the beginning of the year completely broke him down. He could not become the living Horus after all, and was destined to not wear the red and white crown that symbolized the kingship. He thought he could do it. He thought it was just ordinary typhoid fever and he would recover soon, but he was wrong. What afflicted him was incurable malaria, and he was destined to never do it again. The medicine beside the bed had already gone cold. He smiled bitterly and reached out to take it. If possible, he didn't want to drink it anymore, and he didn't want to live anymore. The pain had already tortured him beyond recognition, and every hour of his life was painful. There was the sound of footsteps outside the palace, and he put down the medicine bowl in his hand. Your Highness, information about Tanis. The visitor was Shabaka, the chief guard of the Memphis palace. He saluted Sepal and respectfully presented the papyrus in his hand. Is it from my brother? He looked at the emblem of Amónhotep on the seal and smiled softly. My brother, he is the one I love the most. He took in all the contents on the paper and his expression became furious. Babur, he dared to bully his brother while he was seriously ill? Challenging the dignity of the royal family, this is simply unforgivable. Did Babur think that he could do whatever he wanted just because he was sick? Did he forget the difference between master and servant? He raised his hand to send someone to deal with this matter, but stopped after thinking about it. His time is running out. He will deal with this matter this time, but what about the future? Amónhotep will have to face this kind of thing himself. He can't help him forever. When he read the end of the letter, his expression changed from anger to relief. Amónhotep is indeed his most outstanding brother. He did a good job, better than he thought. Putting down the letter in his hand, he picked up the medicine by the bed and slowly fell to the ground. Shabaka's eyelids jumped. Your Highness. Shabaka, for the rest of my life, I want to live for myself. He smiled sincerely, revealing some childishness for the first time. The aura of old age that had surrounded him since he fell ill was swept away, and he was more energetic than ever. Your Highness, will you not take medicine in the future? Shabaka looked at his face and felt something was wrong, and he had some guesses. Yes, go to hell with the bitter medicine. I won't drink it again. Sepal smiled and kicked over the medicine bowl at his feet, with bright spring light flashing in his eyes. Shabaka picked up the bowl on the ground, turned around silently, and covered the tears in his eyes. Gods of Kemet, please protect my Highness who embodies all the good things, so that he can complete his last journey in the world without pain and joy, and reach the other side of eternal life with joy. Oh, here comes the end of His Highness Sephar's life. I can't bear to let him go. I will leave the remaining plot blank to the final extra chapter. Because it may be very long, I am afraid that everyone will miss our hero Amónhotep too much, so I have to speed up. Chapter 124 Disappearance. When the vegetation in the dream bloomed blue cornflowers, Lin Ya heard the last message from the sky. Thank you for coming. You let me know that my gloomy life can also have other colors. I hope that in the future you can continue to live with my body and my name, and live the kind of life we all want, with friends, family, and lovers. Selka and molybdenum are very dangerous. I don't have to take revenge. The experience during this period has made me know that God really exists. Mot will punish them. Don't put yourself in danger. I don't know that bearded Apo, but I think Shabaka is right. He is a foreigner, which is always right. Don't trust anyone you don't know. Finally, I will bless you in the distant afterlife. May the glory of the God Ra always favor you, my dear Lin. The blue petals withered one by one, and the whole dream collapsed and faded into pure white. Lin Ya felt a little sad. She left, and left with Sepal. May their calm meet in the underworld and never be separated again. She smiled at the white sky in her dream, as if there was still the gloomy girl there, who would answer her words. Okay, I will inherit your name, your body, live well with your share, and live the kind of life we all want. On an ordinary day in the second month of the Pellet season, Sepal, the son of King Amos and Queen Amos Nefertari, whose soul was covered in gold and silver and beloved by the sun god Amon-Ra, left the world forever. On this day, the most distinguished guest in the Memphis palace lowered his noble head and cried bitterly. Queen Nefertari came from Thebes with her 2 daughters and saw her son for the last time when he was dying. Even though she was fully prepared mentally, her face still aged a lot overnight. Lin Ya felt that the 2 princesses looked familiar. After thinking for a while, she remembered that they were the 2 beautiful priestesses she had seen in Nakhn. The older one was Her Highness Amónhotep. She looked mournful, and her delicate beauty aroused the desire to protect her in many people's hearts. For some reason, Lin Ya felt that something was wrong. How could anyone pay attention to her manners when crying and not even put on any eye makeup? The younger one was Her Highness Amos. She looked noisy on weekdays, but now she was silent. She leaned on Sepal's stiff body and clung to it tightly, refusing to let go. She only sobbed softly, then took off an amulet from her neck and wanted to put it on Sepal. Her hands were shaking so badly that she tried to hang the rope several times but failed. The servants came forward to help, but she refused. The scarab amulet was finally placed steadily on Sepal's chest. She burst into laughter and murmured in a low voice, not knowing what she was saying. Thinking of the unusual expression Aksha and Thutmose saw on her face that day, Lin Ya was somewhat moved. The 3 of them should know each other and be quite familiar with each other. She wanted to know more about Aksha, but she also knew that now was not the time to say such things. The dead were Amos' relatives. She was sad and upset, but she wanted to ask such questions. This was disrespectful to Amos and the dead. Sepal lay there quietly, as if he was asleep. The heavy jewelry that he had not worn during his lifetime due to physical reasons was piled on his body at this moment. There were as many as 5 or 6 pieces on his chest alone. His skinny cheeks also showed some of their original handsomeness under T's modification, but the clear eyes were tightly closed and would never open again. Except for the queen and her group, no other royal family members came. This made people feel a little sad. His Majesty was fighting outside, and it was impossible for him to return because of his son's death. However, Queen Nefertari could not stay in Memphis for too long. She was the wife of the god Amon and could not leave the temple for too long. Amon needed her close care. The distance between Memphis and Thebes was too far. It would take nearly a month to go back and forth. Nefertari finally stroked her beloved son's face, and then boarded the ship back to Thebes with a heart full of pain. Amos did not want to leave. She stood there stubbornly, and did not move even when the maid asked her to leave. "But, I want to stay. When my brother Sepal enters the eternal residence, I will return to the temple. I will not cause any trouble. I promise." Amónhotep gritted his teeth secretly and stepped out. "But, I am also reluctant to leave my brother. Let us stay. Don't worry, I will take care of Amos and she will not cause any trouble." She did not want to stay in Memphis. She needed the support of some old priests in the temple to ensure that she could become the wife of the god in the end. Besides, now that everything is settled, Amónhotep will definitely become the regent prince. Memphis has always been the territory of the regent prince. He may come back at any time. At that time, given the relationship between the 2 of them, who knows what will happen. Now that Amos has said that he wants to stay, she must say so too, otherwise in the eyes of Mut, her image will definitely be inferior. Nefertari has the final say in becoming the wife of God. But Amos said it first, and she would be a little behind and not so sincere if she said it now. Thinking of this, she squeezed out 2 tears at the right time to show her reluctance. Amos listened to her sister's performance coldly and did not speak. She just wanted to stay and take care of her brother's funeral. She was not in the mood to play any word games with Amónhotep. Nefertari sighed, turned around, and personally took her daughter's hand. "Amos, this is the duty of a priest of the temple of God, and it is also a rule. You can't stay here, and neither can Amónhotep." Rules, and rules again. The rules made her elder brother leave so quietly and coldly, and even his father didn't come back to see him for the last time. Amos hated this rule. If there was such a day, she would definitely change it completely. Amónhotep was relieved to hear this, because she didn't want to stay in Memphis. The big ship carrying the queen and the two princesses left the dock and gradually shrank into a dot in the sunset. The next step was Teddy's work. He needed to remove all the extra clothes on Sefer and then make a long-lasting corpse. The box brought from Abydos was put to good use. The beautiful house of the Temple of Tu became Teddy's temporary workshop. Several priests of the beautiful house of Tu would help him complete this task. The time to make a mummy is quite long. It takes more than 50 days for an ordinary one, not to mention the royal family. Without being told, Lin Ya knew that Teddy needed to cut open Sepal's stomach and take out his internal organs and brains. She couldn't accept or watch such a scene. There were many relics of Sepal. Everything he used during his lifetime, every piece of clothing and jewelry he wore, would go with him to the afterlife. Lin Ya had nothing to do, so she sorted out the relics with the palace servants. These would be shipped to Abydos in batches soon. Sepal would be buried there, near the mausoleum chosen and built by his father. She was sorting out some of Sepal's favorite gadgets, the snake chess he used to use, the ring for archery, and the toys he liked when he was a child. Her hand paused, and she thought of the disc with a lion pouncing on a sheep that Sepal made for the original owner in her dream. The original owner had never left it behind before, and she habitually brought it with her when she came to Memphis. It seemed that this was the best place for it now. She took the disc out of the package and put it in the wooden box, filled with entertainment toys. It can be seen that Tia really likes it. The rough surface of the clay sand has been rubbed for a long time and has a warm glaze. The disc is not conspicuous among the jewels. She smiled with her eyes bent. She believes that the her in the afterlife will be satisfied with what she is doing now. I am so sleepy, so sleepy, so sleepy. I will come back to the remaining chapter during the day. Actually, Queen Nefertari, her name is also Nefertari. In order to prevent the babies from confusing it with the Queen of Ra-I, I found a different transliteration and her name is really long. It is really Amos Nefertari. It's not because she took her husband's name after marriage, but because her parents are really lazy. They had 5 children, and each of them was named Amos, but with some different suffixes added to the end. In the following chapters, I removed the prefix and just called her Nefertari. In addition, Amos was as lazy as his parents. His daughter Amos was actually named Amos, son of the moon god. I was just afraid that the babies would be dazzled, so I found a different transliteration. This shows that laziness is indeed hereditary. Chapter 125 Piruneful. You're going to Pirunefer. Tiai looked at Lin Ya in front of her with a serious expression and said in surprise. Pirunefer is almost a dead place in the kingdom. What is she going there for? Hasn't the person you want to find been found yet? Well, don't look for him. Anyway, he will go back to Nacon by then. Lin Ya sighed softly. Yes, Aksha has not been found yet, and no one knows when he can be found. It seems that this trip to Memphis is in vain. The owner of the manor, Amónhotep, came back in a few days, and rushed to the Memphis palace after listening to the message she left for the servants. At first glance, she realized that she was wrong. Amónhotep is not Amónhotep. They are really two different people. The owner of the manor, Amónhotep, is already middle-aged. Whether it is the sparse hair on his head or the fat belly on his chest, he is far from Aksha. After hearing what she said, T was overjoyed and kept laughing at her as if it were a joke. He also introduced her the names of several guards in the palace. They were named Amónhotep, Amónhotep X2, Amónhotep X3. The way to distinguish them was the name of their fathers. For example, the first Amónhotep, his father was Tammuz, and he claimed to be Amónhotep, the son of Tammuz. There were no less than 10 Amónhoteps in the Memphis palace alone, but none of them was the one she was looking for. There were so many people, how could she find him? I really don't understand why there are so many people with this name. Since there are so many, why did Aksha lie to himself in the first place? Even if you told me the real name, I wouldn't be able to find it, right? Thinking of this, I felt a little discouraged, but it didn't matter. There was still a lot of time, and he would always come back to Nacon and meet him. This trip to Memphis was just a trip. Tiai and his men will stay here for a long time. It will take about 70 days before they will take the mummy of Sefer to Abydos for burial. She didn't have much to do, and as Tiai said, it was safer to take his ship. But these 70 days were so long, and she didn't want to stay in Memphis all the time. When she was free, she suddenly remembered what Gunyu had asked her to do before leaving, asking her to visit Piruneful if she was free. She thought that she was free now, and had a lot of free time. Tiai, after I leave, please help me send this letter back to Naik. It has been a long time since she left. Except for sending a letter to Gunyu when she first arrived in Memphis, she has never sent another letter. This time she will be delayed in Memphis for so long. Gunyu should be very anxious if there is no news. Okay, how do you plan to get to Puruniful? T looked up and asked her while receiving the letter. He was a little worried about her going alone. I plan to rent a speedboat. It should take 1 day and 1 night to get back. Lin Ya had already studied it. This place is not too far from Puruniful. It can be reached by boat in 1 day, and it is very cheap even if you charter a boat. Okay, I'll send Ipe to go with you. Otherwise, you are so stupid, I'm afraid I'll trouble the kingdom's soldiers to search for you again. T raised his eyebrows. Ipe knows some boxing and is someone he brought with him from his hometown. She is not an ordinary maid. She has been loyal over the years. Letting Ipe go with her makes him feel much more at ease. The words are good words, but they change when they come out of T's mouth. Lin Ya rolled her eyes. Is he saying, will she get lost if she goes alone? Because she is stupid? Really, he is obviously concerned about people, but he never says it properly. By the way, can you make me another wig? She thought for a moment, then reached out and touched her long hair. Use mine. Sepal's wig had already been made, but she didn't choose to use her hair at the beginning. Tu also saw how much she cherished her long hair, so she decided to let it go and never cut it off. Will you put it on your head after it's done? Tu looked at her with a look that seemed a little silly. Lin Ya bit her lower lip, and hesitated to speak. Oh, just make it for me. Don't you want to make a best wig from Kemet? I tell you, I won't agree after today. What she actually wanted was to use this wig as a funeral object with Sepal to be buried together. This was a part of Daya. She no longer had a body to be buried, so she would use this wig to replace her and go to eternity with Sepal. But she couldn't say these words to Ti, otherwise he would say that she loved Sepal. Ti was quite tempted. This sentence touched him from the bottom of his heart. As a sand artist, he certainly wanted to make a work that satisfied him the most. This required excellent raw materials, and Ti's hair quality was completely suitable. After thinking for a moment, he reluctantly agreed to Lin Ya's request. After much bargaining, Lin Ya rented a ship bound for Puruniful at a relatively low price. It was a relatively small sailing ship. There was no cabin on the ship. If you wanted to sleep, you could only lie on the deck, which was completely out of the house. But it was not a big problem. Kemet had little rain for many years. It would not rain in today's weather. Even if you slept on the ship, it would definitely be a little damp. This was unavoidable. Lin Ya said that this boat was a small passenger boat, but it was more like a fishing boat. Maybe the boatman was originally a part-time solicitor. There was dried fish hanging on the bow of his boat. Surprisingly, he also kept a cat on the boat. This cat was different from Aksha's Nafir. It was more elegant, thin, dark brown, and golden at the tip of its fur. The whole cat seemed to be coated with a layer of gold. Its eyes were also very big, and there was a circle of black lines around its eyes, as if it had drawn eyeliner. There was also a pierced ear in its ears and a pair of gold earrings. As soon as she sat down on the boat, Lin Ya reached out and teased it. But the cat ignored her. It just lazily shook its tail, yawned, and turned its head to the other side. Haha, cats are really one family. She didn't think she was so annoying. Why didn't Nafir pay attention to her, and this one ignored her too? There were only 4 people and 1 cat on the boat, the boatman and his assistant, Lin Ya and Ipe. Ipe was a man of few words, and Lin Ya didn't want to talk when no one was talking. Time slowed down and it was very boring. Maybe it was the commonality of picking up passengers. Like a modern taxi driver, the boatman started to find a topic automatically after a while. After all, the boat would take a whole day, and it would be too difficult for anyone to not talk and just work silently. Little girl, are you interested in my cat? Lin Ya touched her nose and laughed. She had never seen such a beautiful cat, and it was so attractive. It's very beautiful. I have never seen such a beautiful cat. It is said that the ancient Egyptians loved cats, but maybe she didn't attract cats. She had only seen 2 close up in such a long time. The others ran away before she could see them clearly. She was telling the truth. The Nafir raised by Aksha was fat and had a reverse face. No matter how you look at it, it is not as beautiful as the one in front of you. Haha, little girl, are you trying to make me laugh? This is the most common cat in Kemet. The boatman laughed out loud. Little girl, what are you going to Piruniful for this time? Are you going to stay with your relatives or something else? The boatman said with a smile while rowing the oars. Well, just go and have a look, Lin Ya said vaguely. She didn't know what she was going to do, but Gunyu said so she just went to relax. Take a look? Little girl, Piruniful is not a good place to see the scenery. The uncle shook his head, and didn't seem to agree with her action. Lin Ya frowned. Is there something wrong with Piruniful? Why do they all have this expression? But Gunyu shouldn't hurt her. If there is anything strange, she still needs to go and have a look to know. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.